Then we started that conversation over again. You know, what are we doing? How is this impacting their ability and their capacity to attack assets that we value? It's not. And that's the problem with saying you're fighting terrorism. You cannot fight a methodology. You can fight an idea with another idea, a better idea, hopefully, and you might have a chance of winning. But you cannot wage war against a methodology. And that's what we did for years. And we failed. We failed in Afghanistan, we failed in Iraq, we failed across the world in terms of the global war on terror. Ali Soufan right now will tell you that Al-Qaeda is stronger than it ever was, certainly stronger than before, and with greater capacity than before 9/11. Especially Al-Qaeda in Yemen. They've just had, like Afghanistan before, they've had so much turmoil in Yemen that they've been unscathed. They've been able to train, they've been able to educate, they've been able to recruit, they've been able to increase their ranks, make their ranks more proficient, make their ranks more deadly. They get plenty of support from you-know-who and others. What the heck? Al-Qaeda in Yemen is probably going to attack somebody very shortly. And I'll give you three guesses as to whom, and the first two don't count.
Larry, how do you find the situation between the United States and Israel? Do you think that they're saying to Israel that this time would be the last time that they're going to be there to support them, or they're going to be there anyway? Doesn't matter how much Netanyahu and his administration is going to escalate the conflict.
Ask me that again. I'm not sure exactly what you're.
My question is, what would be the limit for the United States to support Israel with these escalations?
It's unlimited. With this administration, and I suspect, I hate to say this, Lord, I hate to say this, I suspect with almost any administration I could contemplate, it's unlimited. All that's required, Austin stated it categorically, all that's required is that Netanyahu make it look like Israel was attacked. I won't even say what Austin said. If Israel is attacked, we will come to their defense. Because Netanyahu is behind it. Netanyahu will make sure Israel is attacked. So you're really coming because Bibi called you. But that's our policy. We will come to Israel's defense. And if you've watched any of these tapes with Medea Benjamin following congressmen around on the Hill, you know that what Mark Twain, I wrote it down the other day, there is no distinctly American criminal class, Mark Twain said, save the Congress. He was right. It is the distinctly American criminal class, the United States Congress. And that criminal class will go with Israel in.
He has a point in more ways than one. All right, so it's almost 1 o'clock. Let's look around. Let's look around the league a little bit for scores. Logic is 0.0219. I want to, after I read a couple more, I'm going to give you my feeling on that. Finger is flat. It's up slightly, 2 cents. It's $1.97.5. Let's look at GTII because people will ask. It's 0 bid, 0 ask, close at 3 cents. And as far as I know, it hasn't traded today, which is ridiculous, but it's on that thing. DJT, and probably a pretty good indicator of whether or not they will let Trump become president. It's up 20 cents. I guess let's leave it there. The, oh gosh. The Dow is up almost 600 points, 560. NASDAQ is up 357. S&P is up 106. We'll see if that holds. I think it will, but typically when they rally back, they come back to test a little bit. But I reiterate to everyone, stock market crashes do not, in my experience, do not come when everybody's predicting them. When it's being predicted on every single newspaper, talk show, video, it's usually not what happens. But there's always a first time. There's always a first time. I have not called Ham yet because I want not to annoy the gentleman who lectured me on why that gentleman comes to listen to me yesterday. I would just like to look at the questions, but I really mean it. This is August, and maybe you'll give me some leeway to try to force feed you some ideas. But the 44-year bull market, whatever you want to call it, is about to be over with. Is it going to be over in September, or is it going to be over next spring? I don't know. I can't get it that exact. But my guess, we're at the last stages of a bull market that, unless you're an old person, you don't remember anything but bull market. You remember this crash maybe in 87. You remember the pullback in 2000 or 2001, too. Anyway, you remember that. You remember 2008. But none of those things changed your life. They caused some anxiety for a while. And you learned that Barack Obama wasn't there to help folks. He was there to help the banks. And so he was no FDR, but it didn't really change your life. What's coming is going to change your life. What is coming is going to change your life. Let me see what you're saying to me. The one is first. I can't believe it. The one is first. We're the cutest little baby in the world. Hey, David. I was reading up a little bit on trucking, and apparently part of the problem with trucking is during COVID, a lot of people bought trucks and they overpaid. So, but I'm not, that's just one aspect. I'm not taking away from what you described out there at all. It was just one theory of it. Hey, Zizu. Hey, Strength in Number. Hey, Paul. Hardiman. Hey, Antonio. Hey, Doug C. Hey, Jean Doe. Will Ham jump ship on Finger if Trump loses? I'll ask him, but how I'm interpreting what Ham is saying, Ham himself will probably stop this whole thing around that time. At least I think that's how he's thinking. My guess is because he's such a dynamo, he won't be able to stop, and he'll still be doing it, and he'll have other ideas and all that. But yeah, I'd be glad to ask that. Hey, VO. Hey, Lee. Hey, Kitties. Gerald. No, you were absolutely right. A lot of guys with no experience went out and bought new trucks, and rates were sky high, but it's not sustainable. Yeah, and they apparently they overpaid. They overpaid. So then they had mortgages. They had to bid on every job. That drove down the, whatever you call it, load rate. And the cost, I forget, per pound or per mile or per ton or whatever the metric is, the cost is like 230 and the rates are 205. So it's just not, it's not survivable. But that doesn't, that's a self-correcting, and of course in a free market, which that is, I guess, that'll correct. Too bad they don't have prime brokers they can hide their mistakes with. But that doesn't address your overall observations at all. And I think the real challenge for the United States of America, we became such, we turned to hyper financialization. Any idiot that can smile and dial a phone can become a wealth advisor and accumulate assets. But we no longer really build anything. We have an industrial base, but I don't know if it's true still, but I remember reading an article in the Wall Street Journal a few years back. A guy had an idea for something. I forget what. Let's call it a toaster. And he bought whatever it was, and he raised the money. He's ready to go. Let's call it a toaster. He couldn't find a single place to build that toaster in the United States. I remember trying to raise money for a piping company, and I really liked the story, but nobody else did. But the pipes were made in China or in Mexico, not in the United States. So it was valves, sorry. It was the big valves that you see on the side of the road, big valves that you have to turn. But they weren't made here. So we don't make a lot of stuff anymore. And my point is, when we shift from just-in-time supply lines that extend around the globe, from wine, from France, from cheese, from Spain, from caviar, from Caspian Sea, from parts and computers and etc., from Korea, from medicines or cheap dog food from China, from any of it. It's not going to be that way anymore. And it's a self-inflicted wound. But costs will go up, and we'll have to do more here in the United States. Hey, Robert. Hey, Joe. Hey, TK16. Hey, Donna. Oh, Donna. I hope someday to sit down and talk to you if we meet and know how bad the consumer is getting screwed. Yeah, I'm sure. And it's all concentrated on Amazon and Costco. But yeah, I'd love to do that. Actually, the rates were below $2, and those rates that my dad was getting in 71, but fuel was 11 as to 4 and 5. Oh my gosh. It's upside down. It's upside down. All right, let's see how long this is. I know that it's not too long. It's not too long. I just want to get to chapter 2 of the book by Michael Maloney that I was reading yesterday, because I want to slowly get into your mind the concept that your wealth is not dollar bills. I also want to get into your mind, possibly, that you start seeing assets that you own, like a stock or like dollars or like, I don't know, a house, or like an automobile. These all become things that have relative value to what you really want to have after the loving. All right, his chapter 2 is entitled The Wealth of Nations. Well, this is interesting. His first sentence addresses what I just said. In studying monetary history to identify cycles, that's it, cycles, it is necessary to examine both sides of the coin. The temptation is for people to blame all their woes on the government. I think it was my mother. No, just kidding. Certainly, governments are often at fault when it comes to inflation through fiat monetary policy. But one must never forget that in the end, we are ultimately the ones who consent to our government's rule. History is full of examples of greed leading a populace to do incredibly stupid things. Indeed, we don't need government to ruin our economy. We can get by just fine by ourselves, thank you. The best example I can think of is the Tulip mania of 1637. And if you don't know about the Tulip bubble, you're about to find out. A tulip is still a tulip. In order to understand the absurdity of this moment in history I'm about to share with you, you simply have to ask yourself, would I pay $1.8 million for a tulip bulb? If the answer to that question is yes, then please put this book down and get some professional help. Otherwise, read on and see how crazy the public can become. And that's the real thing. Crowds can go mad. People can go mad. People as a group can really make horrible decisions. And it's tough to go against the group because in the group, the crocodile would only kill one zebra. They can't kill them all. So maybe the odds are, as you cross the Nile, that you're one of the zebras in the pack they don't kill. But if you're a crowd of lemmings or buffalo being chased off a cliff, you're all going to die if you don't catch on soon enough. All right, everyone thinks of tulips when they think of Holland. Then they think of beer. Actually, when I think of Holland, I think of all that seawater that's being held back, and it could come crushing down on the entire edifice of their society. What many people don't know is that tulips are not indigenous to Holland. They were imported. In 1593, the first tulip bulbs were brought from Turkey to Holland. They quickly became a status symbol for royalty and the wealthy. This developed into a mania, and soon a tulip exchange was established in Amsterdam. Knock, knock. Who's there? Amsterdam. Amsterdam who? Amsterdam, glad to meet you. Oh, that's funny. Very quickly, this mania turned into an economic bubble. You may find this comical. In 1636, a single tulip bulb of the Viceroy variety was traded for the following: 4,000 pounds of wheat, 8,000 pounds of rye, 4 fat oxen, 8 fat swine, 12 fat sheep, 2 hogsheads, or in other words, 140-gallon wooden barrels of wine, 4 tons of beer, 2 tons of butter, 1,000 pounds of cheese, 1 bed, 1 suit of clothes, 1 silver goblet, and a night out with the neighbor's wife, all for 1 tulip bulb. At its very peak in 1637, a single bulb of the Semper Augustus variety was sold for 6,000 florins, whatever a florin's worth. The average yearly wage in Holland at the time was 150 florins. So the average annual salary was 150 florins. 1 tulip bulb sold for 6,000 florins. That means that tulip bulbs were selling for 40 times the average Hollander's annual income. To put that in perspective, let's assume the average US salary is 45,000. That means a tulip bulb sold for that range today would cost you $1.8 million. Soon people began to realize how absolutely crazy the situation had become, and the so-called smart money began to sell. Within weeks, tulip bulb prices fell to their real value, which was several tulip bulbs for just 1 florin. The financial devastation which swept across Northern Europe as a result of this market crash lasted for decades. And I don't know if it'll be exactly like that, but what's coming will last for decades. All right, John Law and central banking. Another great example of a society replacing its money with an ever-inflating currency supply is the story of John Law. John Law's life was a true roller coaster of epic proportions. He was originally British, and then he basically came up with, to my memory, came up with the concept of paper money. We'll find out now. Paper money, which allowed France to finance its wars. And I think as a result of the disaster, we got the Louisiana Purchase. I think, well, let's find out. Born the son of a Scottish goldsmith and banker, John Law was a bright boy with a high mathematical aptitude. He grew up to be quite a gambler and a ladies' man. He lost most of his family fortune in the course of his exploits. At one point, he got into a fight over a woman, and his opponent challenged him to a duel. He shot the opponent dead, was arrested, tried, and sentenced to hang. Being the knave that he was, Law escaped from prison and fled to France. Meanwhile, Louis XIV was running France deeply into debt due to war mongering and his lavish lifestyle. John Law, who was now living in Paris, became a gambling buddy with the Duke d'Orléans. And it was about this time that Law published an economic paper promoting the benefits of paper currency. When Louis XIV died, his successor, Louis XV, was only 11 years old. The Duke of Orleans was placed as a regent, temporary king, and to his horror, he found out that France was so deep in debt that taxes didn't even cover the interest payments on that debt. The Duke d'Orléans was placed as temporary king, and to his horror, he found out that France was so deep in debt that taxes didn't even cover the interest payments on the debt. Law, sensing an opportunity, showed up at the royal court with 2 papers for his friend, blaming the problems of France on insufficient currency. Modern monetary theory, MMT, the pure idiocy of it. Dick Cheney, deficits don't matter. Completely idiotic. So Law blamed the problems of France on insufficient currency, and he expounded the virtues of paper currency. On May 15, 1716, which is before our country gained its freedom, but it was after my college was founded, John Law was given a bank, Banque Générale, and the right to issue paper currency, and there began Europe's foray into paper currency. The slightly increased currency supply brought a new vitality to the economy, and John Law was hailed as a financial genius. As a reward, the Duc d'Orléans granted Law the rights to trade from France's Louisiana Territory in America. The Louisiana Territory was a huge area comprising about 30% of what is now the United States, stretching from Canada to the mouth of the Mississippi River. At the time, it was believed that Louisiana was rich in gold, and John Law's new Mississippi Company was with the exclusive rights to trade from this territory, quickly became the richest company in France. John Law wasted no time capitalizing on the public's confidence in his company's prospects and issued 200,000 company shares. Shortly after that, the share price exploded, rising by more than 30 times upward, of course, in a period of months. Just imagine, in a few short years, Law went from a gambling addict and a penniless murderer to one of the most powerful financial figures in Europe. Again, Law was rewarded. This time, the Duke bestowed upon him and his companies a monopoly on the sale of tobacco, the sole right to refine and coin silver and gold, and he made Law's bank the Banque Royale. Law was now at the helm of France's central bank. Now that his bank was the Royal Bank of France, it meant that the government backed his new paper notes, just as our government backs the Federal Reserve paper notes. And since everything was going so well, the Duck asked John Law to issue even more notes, and Law, agreeing that there is no such thing as too much of a good thing, obliged. The government spent foolishly and recklessly, while Law was pacified with gifts, honors, and titles. Yes, things were going quite well. So well, in fact, that the Duke thought that if this much currency brought so much prosperity, and this is how particularly the MMT, the modern monetary theorists, think now. And many of them are, well, I'll keep my thoughts to myself. The Duke thought that if this much currency brought so much prosperity, then twice as much currency would be even better. Just a couple of years earlier, the government couldn't even pay the interest on its debt. And now, not only had it paid off its debt, but it could also spend as much currency as it wanted. All it had to do was print it. He makes a distinction between currency and money. Money he relates to gold and silver and platinum. As a reward for Law's service to France, the Duke passed an edict granting the Mississippi Company the exclusive right to trade in the East Indies, China, and the South Seas. We're coming to the South Sea bubble. Upon hearing this news, Law decided to issue 50,000 new shares of the Mississippi Company. When he made the new stock offer, more than 300,000 applications were made for the new shares. Among them were dukes, marquises, counts, and duchesses, all waiting to get their shares. Law's solution to the problem was to issue 300,000 shares instead of the 50,000 he was originally planning, a 500% increase in the total number of shares. Paris was booming due to the rampant stock speculation and the increased currency supply. All the shops were full. There was an abundance of new luxury goods, and the streets were bustling. As Charles Mackay puts it in his book, Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds, quote, new houses were built in every direction, and an illusory prosperity shone over the land, and so dazzled the eyes of the whole nation that none could see the dark cloud on the horizon, announcing the storm that was too rapidly approaching, unquote. Soon, however, problems started to crop up. Attributable to the inflation of the currency supply, prices started to skyrocket. Real estate values and rents, for instance, increased 20-fold. Real estate values and rents, for instance, increased 20-fold. Law also began to feel the effects of the rampant inflation he had helped to create. With the next stock issue of the Mississippi Company, Law offended the Prince de Conti, and one must not offend the Prince de Conti. When Law refused to issue the Prince shares at the price the Prince wanted. Furious, the Prince sent 3 wagons to the bank to cash in all of his paper currency and Mississippi stock. He was paid with 3 wagon loads full of gold and silver coin. The Duke d'Orléans, however, was incensed and demanded that the prince return the coin to the bank. Fearing he'd never be able to set foot in Paris again, the prince returned 2 of the 3 wagon loads. This was a wake-up call to the public. This is something out of the blue. No one could predict it. This was the wake-up call to the public, and the so-called smart money began to exit quickly. People started converting their notes to coin and bought anything of transportable value. Jewelry, silverware, gemstones, and coin were bought and sent abroad or hoarded. Sent abroad or hoarded. In order to stop the bleeding, in February of 1720, the banks discontinued note redemption for gold and silver, and it was declared illegal to use gold or silver coin in payment. Buying jewelry, precious stones, or silverware was also outlawed. Rewards were offered of 50% of any gold or silver confiscated from those found in possession of such goods, payable in banknotes, of course. The borders were closed and carriages searched. The prisons filled and heads rolled, literally, heads rolled. Finally, the financial crisis came to a head, so to speak. On May 27, the banks were closed. They closed the banks, and Law was dismissed from the ministry. Banknotes, currency, paper currency, were devalued by 50%. And on June 10th, the banks reopened and resumed redemption of the notes for gold with a new value. They closed the banks, devalued the currency, and then reopened and had a new value on gold and silver and platinum. When the gold ran out, people were paid in silver. When the silver ran out, people were paid in copper. And as you can imagine, the frenzy to convert paper back to coin was so intense that near riot conditions ensued. Panic. If you wait till the time of the panic, things will be grim. Gold and silver had delivered a knockout blow. By then, John Law was the most reviled man in France. In a matter of months, he went from arguably the most powerful and influential force in society back to the nobody he was before. Law fled to Venice, where he resumed his life as a gambler, lamenting, quote, "If William had just told me to sell a year ago," oh, no, that's not what he said. He said, quote, "Last year, I was the richest individual who ever lived. Today, I have nothing, not even enough to keep alive," unquote. That's really what I was hoping, that if we had gains, we could all go buy precious metals. We can still do enough. We can't do it in the sizes I wanted, but we can still do enough so that you don't have to say, "Today I have nothing, not even enough to keep alive." I don't want you to be in that position. He died broke in Venice in 1729. And you know, Venice used to be very wealthy and powerful. I don't know if it was called a country, but it was an entity all by itself. The collapse of the Mississippi Company and Law's fiat currency system plunged France and most of Europe into a horrible depression, which lasted for decades. The collapse of the fiat currency system plunged France and most of Europe into a horrible depression, which lasted for decades. What astounds me the most, this is Michael Maloney, is that all of this up and then back down transpired in just 4 years. Okay, here's another country. This is the one, I don't know what he's going to say here. I can't remember, but this is the one that I remember when I'm telling you that I think the market is going to go up. What goes up must come down, said Werner von Braun. Okay, by now you've learned the kind of damage fiat currency can cause. Now let's look at another example, and this time we'll identify the silver lining, no pun intended, and how such extreme situations can actually present opportunities to acquire wealth. But he doesn't say that. He doesn't say present opportunities to acquire wealth. He says opportunities to acquire vast wealth, vast wealth. At the beginning of World War I, Germany went off the gold standard and suspended the right of its citizens to redeem their currency, which was called the mark, for gold and silver. Like all wars, World War I was a war of and by the printing press. Like all wars, World War I was a war of and by the monetary printing press. The number of marks in circulation in Germany quadrupled during the war. Quadrupled during the war. Prices, however, had not kept up with the inflation of the currency's supply. So the effects of this currency inflation were not felt. The reason for this particular phenomenon, which he calls peculiar, was that in times of uncertainty, people tend to save every penny. World War I was definitely a time of uncertainty. So even though the German government was pumping tons of currency into the system, nobody was spending it yet. But at war's end, when the war ended, confidence flooded back along with the currency that had been on the sidelines. And the ravaging effects worked their way through the country as prices rose to catch up with the previous monetary inflation. I wonder if people, when they were locked in during the economic shutdown, really didn't spend all the money was printed. And then as the misnamed Anti-Inflation Act that Joey and Kami signed and passed on her vote came through, people started spending, and maybe that's why we have inflation. I don't know. All right, just before the end of the war, the exchange between gold and the mark, the German mark, was 100 marks per ounce of gold. But by 1920, this ratio was fluctuating between 1,000 and 2,000 marks per ounce of gold. Retail prices shortly followed suit, rising by 10 to 20 times. Anyone who still had savings, which they had accumulated during the war, don't mention the war, was bewildered when they found out it could only buy 10% or less of what it could cost just a year or two earlier. Money is a representation of the things you need to buy with it. Right now, you've experienced 20, 30 years of relative calm. But what if you woke up one day transformed into a cockroach? What if you woke up one day and in a Kafkaesque way, society, you went to the grocery store and you brought $1,000 with you and it could only buy $50 of the goods you could buy today? That's why thinking about alternatives is very important. Okay, then through the rest of 1920 and the first half of 1921 in Germany, inflation slowed. And on the surface, the future was beginning to look a little brighter. All right, you're going to get ham. Hello? Not much. What are you doing?
I'm sleeping in a car. I'm waiting for my son to get out of therapy.
All right, well, you're going to be able to annoy everyone that's listening.
Oh, let's go. Come on.
Connected to
All right,
feels
here's
like
the
that.
hamster. Well, no, hang on. It didn't. There. Now you're there. Now you're there.
All right, so William, I don't know if I told you I have the truck confirmed for Thursday.
You didn't. You said Monday,
Right.
but Thursday's fine.
Yeah, the gentleman got back to me, so I'm trying to get as quick as I can. Working on the slide presentation, should have a couple of slides put together. I will, you can let Anna know, I will have a MMTLP slide up there to help express some disappointment with the SEC for those investors. I'll try to get that approved by some of the people in the community so they can see it. So they don't think we're just jerks just disappearing here. I will heavily focus on the Trump at burn stock settlement segment. I will expose lend partners as an unregistered toxic lender who should be sanctioned and shut down. Just on that point, the reason they remain unregistered is because they don't want anybody to see what they're doing. All right, because once you become registered, you got to show everybody your cards. And that's why they keep hiding it. But like all the unregistered toxic lenders, it needs to be shut down and fined and whatever. I will also focus on Lynn with their relationship with Benchmark. Companies call Benchmark up. Benchmark isn't the Lynn. It's like the car wash between these two. All right, so we'll get to see. We want the SEC and the DOJ and the FBI to investigate Lynn, the relationship with Benchmark, the wire transfers, the short sales, everything that goes through them. Everything that goes through them, we want to make sure that they are aware of. And that's what we're going to focus on. And the signs are going to be brutal. William, this will be the 16th time that we reported this crime. 16 times. I don't know about you, but this is this is insanity. There's someone robbing a bank. We reported 16 times. We show them the bank robber and no one's done anything about it. But like I said, we're at 68 days and 2 more hours, we'll be down to 67. And you know what? It's just going to keep coming and keep coming. All right. Again, FingerMotion, I showed you the, William, I think I sent it to you. There's a bid for 25,000 shares. It's been there at 193. I believe it's at 195 still. And I think they're going to try to cross it. So people never show their bid size in this stock. The only time it's shown is for illegal wash trades.
It's 196 by 199, 100 by 400 right now.
Yeah, there's 25,000 shares bid just below that, and I sent it to you and our mutual friend. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can still have it. Give me 1 second, Wayne. Take it easy. Hold on a second, Wayne. There I have it here. You can see it on my friend's level 2. I just sent it to you if you want to show it to anybody. That was a few
I
minutes
don't know
ago.
if I can, I'll try to show it, but I don't know.
And you can see the photo. It just came across. But I don't know if that's still available, but it's still there. But they trade. Anytime you put a big bid like that, market makers would just jump in front of you like you're seeing here. Just so you know, market makers would jump in front of the 25,000 share bid. I think some of my friends are doing it to annoy them since there's no real market makers. My friends, I had a call with a couple of them before, and I told them, if you ever see the bid up there, just put 100 shares in front of it and fuck with them. That's what they're doing. And that's why you can't see the 25 bid anymore. But it looks like they're trying to watch. Remember, Friday is the short report. I will be reporting that on the slide that the person short 1,690,000 shares is 100% tied to Lynn Partners and the naked short. We want that to be investigated also. I want the SEC to be aware of it. So if they're looking, we're making the case easy to follow. Because whoever's shorting the stock, borrowing it, is 100% tied to Lynn Partners. We're letting them know that also. All right, so that's another part of the crime. Again, the market, it was down, it rallied up. You know, you got it up $600. It's so funny. Yesterday there was nothing but sellers. Today it's nice and orderly, walking back up. This isn't real buying. This is broken buying. It will reverse. If you are long and you made a great trade on it, my advice would be to flip it. If you were in a big cap, whether it's NVIDIA, whatever it is, take that chance to make that trade. Don't be afraid to lock your profits. And if you're nervous and you think that the market, they're going to continue to go, you can always buy cheap calls if you want to keep playing. But as a trader, if wash out, it rallies back up like they're doing it today. You can't have 1,100 point drop in today to marching it back up like nothing happened. A lot of people were hurt. A lot of people sold out. It was a quick flush out, and it comes back to haunt them. Remember this, and I spoke with Ace about this earlier. The stock market, this wipeout, has taken the shares, as William would say also, from strong hands, institutions, to weak hands, traders like myself. We buy them and we flip them. We do not hold on to them. So that I have a weak hand. A strong hand is the Fidelity Management is buying it forever. Warren Buffett's even selling out his positions. So he has the best advisors in the world. Now, Dennis Neal is that, put a post up about Warren Buffett selling. You got to be careful because sometimes he does sell to raise money to make an acquisition. But I do think like buying a home at the top of the market, he's waiting for better prices. I don't think he's rushing into anything unless he sees a great opportunity. So, people, if you want to poke around and see what Warren Buffett's doing, see what his trend is. A lot of times there's a sign that you can see what he's going to buy. What is he building into? What stocks are in his group that he's adding to? If you want to be ahead of the curve, go look at Warren Buffett, see what sectors he's adding to. And that could be a sign that he's looking at someone in that sector. A bigger takeover play, because he does that a lot. So just be careful on that. But he's dumping Apple, which Apple has been the most prestigious thing to own for all these years, and he's dumping it. He didn't dump a little bit; he dumped half of it. Now, does he continue? You don't know until the next period. So I'm sure that any rallies he will be laying into it and selling the rest of his position. Why would you go from a full position to a half a position if you think it's still a good place to be? These people, when they change their minds, they're out. I've seen it done 1,000 times. Also, like I said, this rally I believe is going to be false, and you're going to get another wipeout here. All right. The only people crying about a rate cut are the bankers and the brokers who are the ones that are stuck. They keep demanding that the government cut rates. I know a lot of smart people thinking that they won't do it. So I mean, again, that's that we all want rate cuts because it helps us, but these guys need rate cuts because they're all upside down and they need the money. Anything you want to say, Wade?
No, I think you're doing a good job. I agree with you, although I'm not sure that we're going to have a massive re-correction. We might just test what happens.
Once it starts to, you've been calling for a melt back up again.
Yeah, but who knows? I mean, I could be wrong.
No, just listen. Everyone's you have an opinion. You don't have to be right.
You have to have a theory to trade against. And,
right. You have to have something that you can kind of figure out. And based on what I studied, what I was taught, bringing this part of the rally back to me is that we anticipated a snapback rally, okay? And they usually run out of steam. I'm not a short seller, but these things always have the same pattern. It's not like they just were here and they're going to come back and take it always back up there because companies are laying off. Intel's hurting, Apple's hurting. There's a lot of the leaders have been, broken down. All right. So again, just be careful. You can you can short it for a little bit. You can go short Home Depot, Costco, all these crazy names, American Express. People aren't spending money. It hurts the credit card companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these things happen. Car companies, people aren't buying cars. There's 100 different ways to look at it. You figure it out and learn how to play the game. I'm just giving you the opinion that if we were on a trading desk now, we wouldn't be looking for longs. We've been looking for things that we can short.
Yeah.
Because usually the first rally is not the best rally. Again, this is weak hands that have bought it. Weak hands are looking for other people to take them out.
Yep.
And if someone's not taking them out, they're going to dump it, and down she goes. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'll just go back to FingerMotion. This is day, since October, 8, 9, 10, 11 months of nothing but selling of the stock. And now you can see all this manipulative, 100-share lot trading, which is completely fraudulent. And then you see prints of trades, like they don't even show up. And we have to, the reason we have to study the short position to see if they're washing the trades, because you can actually tell they ain't no one covering shit because we can't see. If someone's trying to buy back shares, stock prices will go up. There is not one uptick. We get an uptick, it's a downtick right after that. So it shows you that they're not covering anything. All right, so the only way they're covering anything is by moving shares back and forth, and that is by washing. Washing is deemed to be illegal. It creates fake volume. It creates a false narrative in the marketplace, and that's what they're doing. And I will report that to the SEC right outside their windows. William, there's a gentleman that's a shareholder that you know, and his father-in-law on his wife's side is an SEC enforcement. I was going to try to get him the call because he has regular conversations with him. And he believes that the SEC is 100% following what we're doing with the truck. He thinks that we're leading the charge for them. We're making it easy. People that are reporting the crime that they don't see. There's a lot of stocks out here, a lot of crime. And they think that we're helping them along. So that's why we decided to put the truck out here. I wanted him to say it in his words because he speaks with his father-in-law, who's a SEC enforcement guy. So I believe we're doing the right thing. We're putting it out there. If any bashers or any short sellers want to show up tomorrow, we can take a photo shoot in front of the truck, in front of the SEC. If you don't like that building, we will be at the DOJ, the second stop, and then the FBI building in D.C. tomorrow. And we will be glad to hopefully get Andrew Left out there and list all the stocks that he killed over the years. Let the SEC know about. Remember, he was stock lemon also. He destroyed many small cap companies. He destroyed many lives. People lost a lot of money. Companies were destroyed over Andrew Left and his friends out of Boca Raton. And I'm sure that all the people in Boca Raton are all very nervous because guess what Andrew Left did? He told his friends what he was doing before. There's a nice paper trail of probably the same people all front running his trades. You know, when he got paid or whatever he did, wrote these stories, he let his friends know about it. All right, so I'm sure that the SEC is not that stupid, and they will investigate that. But we'll make sure they remember to look at that point of view. All the people that traded with him. There's always a paper trail. Pat Byrne always says it. They leave a fingerprint. They leave their fingerprints everywhere. So whoever was trading with Andrew Left, anyone who has relationships with them, you know, whether it's Savvy Management and Lynn Partners with that guy in Canada. What was the name of that guy in Canada? Big fund. Molson. What was the name of that thing? That big fund, right?
Anson.
What was it called?
Anson.
Right. You know he had ties. They all had ties to that guy. Anson was probably doing all the big trades for everybody. They were paying everybody to be part of it. And that guy, it said a long time ago in that story that Andrew Left was part of it. Hindenburg, they were all getting paid and compensated. There's probably my friend who said that pretty familiar with the law enforcement said expect a lot more people getting subpoenaed, a lot more documents being called for, and you'll see that in the coming months. It's taken a year since Andrew Left lived in fear of the DOJ because he knew it was coming. And that's why he stopped shorting. He closed his firm up. Remember Jim Chanos? He did the same thing, Jim Chanos. I wonder if he's going to get caught here, too. You know, you never know if there's a big fish on the hook here. Jim Chanos has been a short seller forever. He says he couldn't take it anymore. Short sellers are going to be extinct. That's why he closed up. Or is Jim Chanos under investigation also? My guess is that he's under investigation because he's been doing this his whole life, and all of a sudden he doesn't want to do it anymore. Like there's no more. As soon as he covered up the market crashes, really, there's no more opportunities on the short side. Sure. If you believe that, I can tell you a bridge way.
Really? Where is it? Where is it? I'm in the market.
I don't know.
I'm in the market for a bridge.
Oh, you're in the. I'm going to tell you the Brooklyn Bridge, and we're even going to allow you for a few extra dollars, William. I'll let you put some toll booths on it.
That is an impressive bridge.
It's an impressive bridge. You always got traffic on it. You'll be rich. Even if you got a penny a car. Wow, a penny a car is like a toll booth, right? So just imagine what FingerMotion does. Every time they sell cell phone top-up minutes, they're making a penny all the time. Pennies. Those pennies add up all the time when they're selling minutes to cell phones. on the people in China, only 1.5 billion of them. So again, a toll booth is a great thing. You always profit from it, and that's the business of FingerMotion. We've always said it was we always said it was like a toll booth where everybody buys minutes for $1. FingerMotion buys them from the telecom for 99 cents, and the Chinese government gives them the right to make 1 cent on their payments, or whatever, half a penny, whatever it is, over 1.5 billion people. Okay? And just like Dennis Neal said, he lost his phone and he's been lost without it. Everyone in China is the same way as everyone in the US. We all need our phones. No one on this call leaves their phone at home and goes out. Am I correct, William? You take your dog for a walk, you got your phone with you, right? You go to a restaurant to take your phone. You have your phone with you everywhere. And then we're all trained. This is our computer. This is our life. Everyone needs their phones. The kids are worse than we are. All right? And everybody's hooked on it. And FingerMotion happens to be in that business. It's the biggest market in the world. Yet someone's trying to short it at $2 now, whatever it is, $1.99, $2, playing games. And we've hung in there and exposing the criminals. This stock, since Lynn Partners popped up, has been totally manipulated by these animals. I don't know where they're doing it from. But the company got listed on the NASDAQ at $9. They killed it back down. We went back up. We fought them back, fought them this way, and it's been under attack since they went to ring the bell on the NASDAQ. And now it's 2 more deals. The stock has been nothing but sold. Even with their asshole buddy Benchmark, giving a $5 target. And by the way, that big brokerage firm I told you about, which I will not give you the name, I'm told they're writing a research report on it, and we'll get institutional ownership on it. And that comes to my friend who works at the firm, not the company. This is my friend who works at the firm. So again, I'm not saying anything. Let the report come out. I don't want the criminals to know what we're thinking or what's going on. Everybody told you about that, William?
That's good news. Somebody asked me a question to ask you, and I think the question is, let me go back up here, but it's basically,
How did I go to the barber, and then how did they put that round spot on my head?
yeah, how do you get that round spot in the middle of your head when you go to the
I
barber?
pay extra for that.
You pay extra?
I actually don't go anymore. My wife just takes the things that she shaves the dog with. She shaves my head.
Anyway, the question, I can't find it, but it's basically, what if Trump doesn't win? Are you going to move away from Finger?
If Trump doesn't win, I think I'm going to have to go buy more guns. Number one, protect my family. No, I will not move away from Finger. We will continue and fight. It will be much more difficult because right now, I don't have to express this to you, but listen, I've been doing this for 24 years, and I've been doing it, just banging a drum, and people came, William came, and everybody else here has come around. We have the world's most powerful man on our side. Now, you're just saying if he doesn't win, I got it. If they kill him, we lose. If they almost tried to kill him, right? We almost lost. I had no idea. But we have the most powerful man in the world. He gets in, he said on TV, and I couldn't believe he said it. It was like a gift from the heavens. That the first day he's going to fire Gary Gensler. And I almost fell off my chair when I saw that video. So before that, we have Pat Byrne telling you that he will get into the administration. He's been told he's going to be in the administration. And the one thing he wants to fix is stock settlement. Well, that's the only thing that I want to fix is stock settlement. Stock settlement is the counterfeiting of the equity market. So you have Pat Byrne, the #1 expert in the world, and the most powerful man on the world on our side. Now, I'm a gambler. This looks to me like a lot. And we're running against people that are brain dead. So again, to me, you got 60, I put it 68 days, we'll be at 67. I'm counting it down, letting these assholes know we're not going away. To me, it looks like a lot. If the company was $20, there's a lot of room for downside. We're at $2. The company is getting stronger. The fundamentals will support it all the time. That's why I'm not nervous about it. GTI was nervous about it because the CEOs never put a business in there. That's the difference between the two. AMC is a company that's always drowning in debt and needs more money and more money. That's why I didn't have no interest in that one. He didn't want to fight for the shareholders. GameStop was the same thing. Like GTI, it had no real business. It was dying. What did they do? They sold out to the shorts and raised the money. He did a great job. Everybody had an opportunity to make a lot of money. If you didn't, shame on you. Right? But now he has to prove that he has a business, build a business, whatever it may be. I have no idea what it is. But he did cover the shorts. FingerMotion is standing here fighting for us, and they know that we have Donald Trump now. They don't have William and Ham and all a bunch of red tag fighters here anymore. We have Donald Trump, and we have Pat Byrne. And I know Pat Byrne. I have a cell phone. I can call him up in a minute. I know him from 2006. So, it's not like I have to go reach out to him. I can make the call in 2 minutes. There's nothing to say. Let's let him get in. And then I can guarantee you I will be sitting with him. And I have the book on FingerMotion. I have everything that I've ever said documented. We'll just hand it to him. And I'll make sure when he's in charge of the SEC that we're going to get to the front of the line. And they will go after them. Now, I don't believe we're going to make it to that point. I think the shit's going to hit the fan. I think Donald Trump's going to do something with DJT and Devin Nunes because I believe they want to end that before they get to the election, when they win the election. Because otherwise the Democrats will be yelling, oh, they're doing it to promote his own company, blah, 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 blah. That's why, Devin Nunes has been speaking about it. I think they want this out there in the press, in the media, way before the election, and they've done that. I don't know how they're not stepping on everybody's throats already, forcing the issue. A little different than the way I look at it, but that's the way they're doing it. I can't force them to do that. Did I answer that question, Larry?
You did. You did.
I don't believe. Listen, the only way he loses, I think, if they try to assassinate him. And I think Pat Byrne is smart enough. When I met him, he had protection with him. So I think these people are not stupid. They know where they're at. And I don't know. How lucky can you get? We have a stock that's got 230 million shares short. A stock that I believe has tremendous fundamentals. You can look yourself. That's $2. Okay, not 20. I said it many times. $20, $30. You get a lot of volatility in the stock. They manipulate it up and down. There's no volatility here. They tried to create volatility by washing trades to create the illusion that there's sellers. That's not working. There is no sellers. You can see it yourself. I'm not making it up. I show you the trades as many times as I can all day. 1 share, 5 share, 1, 2, 3, 4. We sell stock like that. Nobody. All right. This is like a machine gun approach trying to get people to think there's a seller because they try to tick it down. If the stock is 2 to 2 and 2 to 2 and a quarter, all you ever see is the trade at $2, 100 shares, 1 share, 2 shares, 3 shares. They, oh my God, just keep trading at 2. And then what do? Then they dropped a bid to 198. And next thing you see, it printed 198 for 1 share, 2 share. There's no sellers. And then all of a sudden it's bid 197 for 1 share, 100 shares. And all of a sudden 25,000 trades. That's the wash trade. You can just see how they're doing it. It's very easy to see. This is fraud in slow motion. So again, I look at it that I believe we have a company. We have the short trap. We know who the short is. Okay. We know who their prime broker is, Jeffries. We know everything about them. We just don't know where they're finding these trades offshore. Okay, but that will come to light. And we have the most powerful man in the world. Not number 2. We have the number 1, the biggest, the most powerful man in the world. And his right-hand man is going to be Pat Byrne. And that's our buddy. I don't know how to tell you, but you can't get any better than that. And if there were ever an ending to this nonsense, I just describe it to you. And I couldn't believe that this would happen. You never heard me predict, oh, Donald Trump's going to be president. He's going to bring Pat Byrne in to save the day. I've never said that. Pat Byrne's been diagnosed with cancer 4 times. He's had his life threatened. He's been doing all kinds of crazy shit. And he comes back into our life now. I don't know about you, but this is how it ends. South Korean government, the China government, Thailand, India, all attacking naked shorts to save their economies. Ours can't be that far behind. And I will have a slide addressing that about South Korea, China, and all that. Where is the SEC? We might as well just keep pissing on them, right? It's open season on them for not doing anything.
Do you have a pickleball stock to recommend for people to buy?
Pickleball stock, I only talk about FingerMotion. When I went and played yesterday, there were 300 people there. And people know that I'm in the stock market. They said, oh, you must have got destroyed today. I said, no, I'm only in one situation. And they wanted to know what it was. I told a group of them. Each day I speak with people and they buy 3s and 5,000 shares. The woman I play with, she's 50 years old. She came over here, she bought 4,500 shares. And I said, do you ever need to understand more about it? I'm very polite. And she told her cousin who bought 2,000. And just accumulation is the way to do it. It doesn't make a difference if it's 196 or 2 1/4 or 2 1/2. It doesn't make a difference to me. We got 78 days. We're going to 77 in 2 hours. I've been here for 24 years. 77 trading days I can live with. I gave you the negatives and I gave you the positives. Negatives is they killed Trump. Negatives, they killed Pat Byrne. But even with Pat Byrne, if they did eliminate him, we still have Devin Nunes, and they have to 100% expose the shorts and DJT because that's Trump's money, and he deserves to have his company not being naked short. Period. And if it's doing it for his company, it saves everybody. Pat Byrne gets us to the front door in a second. So to be DJT, we're right behind him. I think that's listen, if you're at the racetrack, we got the 1 and the 1A boss. I don't know if that's all I can look at, how I look at it. If you think there's a better way, tell me, because I think we're in the best position possible, and I think it's coming. I told you, soon it'll be 77 days.
Okay. There aren't really any more questions that.
Listen, accumulation. I talked about it yesterday, but I met a guy who I played pickleball with. He was talking about buying Nancy Eddy, a nuclear power thing. And he told me it was like $11. And I told him to buy 20% or 25% each dollar down. So you wanted to just buy some at 11, he bought some at 10, he bought some at 9, he bought down even lower today. And today the stock turned, it's up $1.22. I think his position on his, I forget how many shares he bought, but I think it was 3,000 or 3,500 shares. I think his position is like 965 and 970. If he would have purchased it the first time, all at 11, he'd be underwater by $1.50. All right, and that's taking the market for a complete wipeout. And that's why you average into things. In FingerMotion, they already slaughtered us. I got it. I'm happy about it. But again, they showed their hand. They need to hold it down. They can't let it go up because they don't have the money for margin. And for people that don't understand, the banks, when these events happen, like yesterday, the banks cut back on their liquidity. And they say, okay, lend partners, we lent you $100 million. We need to call in some of our loans. And they'll say, we're big people. What are you talking about? I say, listen, it doesn't mean I need to do you. Instead of $100 million, now we're going to lend you $45 million only. You need to cut back on your positions and get back that money. You don't have the leverage anymore. That's what we talk about margin. Margin hurts in many different ways. If the stock goes up, they need to put up more money. But also the money that's supporting these trades by borrowing it from a prime broker or bank, when they get in trouble, many are, they pull the wool out for these guys, the rug out, and they have to somehow adjust what they're doing. And that may be the reason we see these one shares and all this nonsense trading every day, is because behind the scenes there's some pressure somewhere. So we're just going to step on it tomorrow on Thursday and put a little more pressure on them on Thursday. And just one more thing, Ray, I wanted to let you know that our friend brought it to my attention that AVA is squeezed from $10 to $42 in 10 days, 8 days or something like that.
What's
Sam,
the symbol?
Apple, Sam, Apple, Victor, Apple.
Sava, wow.
It went from $10, I don't know, 8 days ago to 42 or 43 bucks yesterday. And one person said to me, well, it's down today. I says, I just told you it squeezed from 10 to 42. I didn't tell you to buy it. I wouldn't buy it. What do you have, you heard? That's a short squeeze. I know nothing about it. And I'm just telling you that. And the news was that they dropped the lawsuit against the guy who, I guess the short seller, fake report, I guess. I'm not even sure what the hell news was. But if you read it, they dropped the lawsuit against the short sellers. And the stock went from 10 to 42. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but someone panicked and covered. You can see Sam, Apple, Victor, Apple. Just something for you people to read about. They didn't have to cure cancer. They dropped the lawsuit. The stock went up from 10 to 42.
Okay. I don't own any Sava, unfortunately.
No, I'm just talking about it.
It's always that way. It's always that way. Not in the one that. But that's a nice trade. So that's for people.
I'm just trying to show you that the market was crashing yesterday, and that one went up, to $42.
And it gives an idea of where maybe if you're ever in a squeeze, where you should try to get your original money out anyway.
Well, listen, the one thing I do tell people is the education that they got in FingerMotion. We've counted the shares, we know the criminal, we know everything about it. You know how much shares of the real short. Every day we talk about it. And we update you on the new update, which will be on Friday. SAVA, I know nothing about it. GameStop, I know nothing about it anymore because the shorts have been covering for the company selling of shares. Same thing in AMC, KOSS, no one knows. It just calls it everyone just calls it a meme stock. I don't know why. I see no data from anybody about it. Don't show me one stock out there that someone's posting and updating people on it every day. Putting it on a truck in front of the SEC, this would be our 16th time. Who else is doing that? And if there wasn't a problem, I'm sure the SEC would have came down on everybody. The SEC can't say shit about GTI because they gave us the proof that there is a short. What else can we say? We just need management to get in line. And Richard and the attorney in Nevada, whatever his name is, they're making sure that happens. So what else can we say? Everything that we said is right on the notes.
Let me see what questions. I guess Roger Rabbit is reversing his stock again.
Yeah, someone texted me that again, 1 for 10 or something like that.
Yeah, 1 for 10. Hey, winners always win. There's a stock called Sam, Gary, Mary, Oscar, Sangamo Therapeutics. They just entered into agreement with Genentech, and that's up today. I don't know if it'll run any further, but it's up to $1.04.
How could a company that gets in business with Genentech be $1?
Well, it says license, so I guess that doesn't fully. Maybe it's for genomic medicines, however you say it.
Let the people die. Who cares? Listen, the company this is the company's biggest day they ever had. They got to deal with a bigger company, and no one cares. This stock could be up $20. Let the company raise money so they can enhance their product, do more things with it. I'm sure that the company will do a secondary, stay away from it. They'll do something. The shorts are calling them up already, saying, "Hey, come on, you need money now. You're doing a deal with Genentech, blah 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 blah." They'll sell some bullshit, and whether it's Benchmark or Aegis or what's that other shit firm that just did the deal with CBM? The guy from Aegis, I had this conversation with Steve Rosenberg yesterday. The guy from Aegis went to I keep forgetting the name of the place because lucky I don't remember. They just keep changing their hats and go to different places. And the leaders of these firms just go to the same hedge funds. Hey, we got a deal for you. You can do it in CBM. It's very liquid. sell the stock short, buy it back on the secondary. I make a nice fee. You guys make some nice money. Blah 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 blah. They all do the same thing. CBM has done it 20 times already, and you know what? He's going to get the cure for cancer. The guy. He's only been doing it for 20 years since I know him. But for 20 years, all of the shareholders have been wiped out.
I've got one share of a medical company when I started with 150,000, and I thought it was going to be my retirement plan.
And that's what everybody understands.
3 years, 4 years of work, 3.5 to 4 years of work.
And that's what people don't understand. That's what Fraud Street does to companies. They short them, they get diluted to death, and they go into the company. You got too many shares, reverse it, and let's start over again. That's what they do. And Roger Rabbit is the latest victim of that.
Ah, victim schmictum.
Whatever. Partner.
Hey, if you're CEO of a company, it means that you have the brains to sit down, read a document, and puzzle out various scenarios in which your stock might trade in the future, and say, I'm not signing this. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the man. All right. No other questions. I don't know where the bid is. You're sending that to me, that question, where the 25.
Oh, I'm sending it to my friend who's got the.
There's no bid on my market depth is 4.
I'm looking for the 25,000 share bid.
Yeah. I have to pay money to see more than 4 lines on the market depth.
Well, since we have no more activity, we'll end it on that.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Be it 77 days and 2 hours. I'll post it up. If anyone has any great words of wisdom that they want to see on the truck in front of the SEC,
I'd like you to put a picture of Donald Trump with his hand out saying, Gary Gensler, on the first day, you're fired.
I have that, and I have a picture of Gary Gensler being fired, and I have a picture of Pat Byrne being installed as the SEC chair. And his first thing he's going to do is force settlement and FNGR of 230 million shares. I did that already, but
All right. Relax, everybody.
Give it the program.
Relax, everybody. You can put on there that Trump will show how Gary can have a comb over, Gary Gensler.
Bull bastard. And he bald-headed menace, like scumbags.
They're all from various certain parts of the world. But you know what?
When I tell my finger is 700 or 1,000, I'm going to go to Turkey and have them remove the hair from my back and put it on my head.
So if we go to heaven, do we go with or without hair?
I'm ready to go. I got no hair.
All right, let's.
I'm gonna travel home, and I'm hoping everybody answered my questions. And
No, that was great. That was great. Awesome.
And this Thursday, we'll be in DC with William.
I'll be there.
You're welcome to come.
Foot loose and fancy free. I'll be there. All right. Thank you.
Have a great day.
All right. Bye. Next dealer. New dealer. All right. So what I heard there's a report coming out on Finger. That's what I heard after all that 40 minutes. That's the one thing that stuck in my head. Don't get all excited, guys. I'm telling you, anything that makes these stocks go up that's not a surprise and doesn't bring a lot of buying with it is just a reason for the shorts to sell more. But it's like building a brick wall. You know, it's another brick in the wall. It's another, step in the right direction. I also wanted to tell you guys something, that in my opinion. I'm going to cut right to the chase. And of course, you're going to say, oh, it's not going up. I don't believe it. Therefore, I'm just going to think about GTII, which I don't blame you for thinking about GTII. But do you know that if you were to try to buy GTII right now, you'd probably pay 4 or 5 cents, 6 cents? I don't know what you would pay. Some people said they paid a penny. But right now, there's a press release, which I've shown to you many, many times, and I'm not going to find it right here, I don't think. I need a wife. I need a life. I need a maid. We all need wives. My mother used to say even wives need wives. Anyway, I can't find it. But there's a press release out from Logic that they have 6 additional deals coming. The first deal is going to be done by August 15th. So survey says 2 weeks away. And it says in there that the combined value, now it's open to some interpretation, but I want you just to stick with me a second. The combined value is over $750 million. Let's just call it $1 billion, and you can adjust it whatever way you want. Let's say that these 6 deals have a valuation for Logic of $1 billion, but we get 15% to 15% of that to Logic. So that is $150 million divided by, this isn't how many shares are outstanding. This is how many shares are authorized. It's a more conservative number. So 150 million. There's 300 million shares outstanding. Authorized. So you can do with that what you will. Well, it didn't say $1 billion, but it said over 750 million. It didn't say that they were all going to close in August, but it did say they were going to announce, get them under signature. They're all in LOI stage or something like that. You can read the report yourself. It didn't say we're going to have 15% of each. Well, the first one we do, so it's a good template. So anyway, $1 billion, 15% is 150 million. There's 300 million shares. That's 50 cents a share. The stock's trading at 2 cents. You can be negative all you want, and you can say, hey, I was never told about this, and the stock's under pressure. It's easy to borrow, and the shorts always win, and all they have to do is keep selling and selling and selling, and it never works. We never win, and GTII is down, and hey, I put $12,000 in GTII, and now it's worth 49 cents, and you can say anything you want, but I just want to point out to you that Logic right now is trading for 2 cents. And if we assume they're going to target $1 billion in value, we own 15%, and you can be as critical as you want. That arithmetic works to 50 cents a share. Now you can say, well, it'll never go to 50 cents. They won't. Okay. Let's say it goes to 25 cents, just half of that number. Let's say it goes to 15 cents. Let's say it just goes to 10 cents. A fifth of that number, 10 cents. You make 5 times your money. Yeah, but I would rather complain about GTII and complain about this and that and complain, and then I want to complain some more, and I want to come on here and complain some more. I'm only talking to those people who do that. The rest of you who hurt because you lost money, I know how it feels, but there's a trade. You buy, let's say you buy, I don't know, 10,000 shares, costs you 200 bucks. Let me make sure I'm right. No, it costs 2,000 bucks, right? 10,000 shares times 0.02. Yes, 200 bucks. 200 bucks. Goes to 10, you're worth 1,000. Yeah, but I was waiting for the home run on G. Well, we are where we are. So then you turn 200 bucks into 1,000, maybe. And the next idea comes along and you turn 1,000 in, maybe it goes up 5 times as well, and you turn that into 5 grand. Well, that's not very exciting. Well, you turn in 2 steps, you turn 200 into 5. And then another idea that goes along, and let's just say that one also works at 5x. All of a sudden, you have 25,000. Yeah, but how do I know I'm going to get 3 ideas in a row? You don't know. You don't know. But what if another idea comes along and you're at 25 and it gives you 5x? You're over $100,000. You can start with $200. Anyway, you could buy 100,000 shares right now. You could go out, and it's not financial advice, but Logic has 56,355 shares offered at 0.0219. You could go claim all of that for less than $2,000. But if that 50,000 shares went just to 10 cents, well, let's figure it out. Since I can't do it in my head anymore, that part of my brain atrophied years ago. If you went and bought 56,355 shares, they're on offer right now, so you would get them at 0.0219, and I'm sure they would give it to you cheaper. It would cost you $1,250. Then $1,250, 56,355 times 10 cents, not 50 cents. You have $5,600. All right, that's enough on Logic. That's how I feel about Logic. Somebody wanted me to talk about silver, which I'm glad to do. Okay, here's Matthew. He told me you can get it for 3 cents. Oh, that's pretty good. I would argue, Matthew, for me, I just told you, I think if I had $1,500, I'd go buy 60,000 shares of Logic for a little bit more than 2 cents. And I'd hope to sell it for a profit at almost anything. Sell it at 4, 6, 8, 10, 15, 20. And I could take that money and go buy GTII if you wanted to. Tomorrow is a big day for GTII. Yeah, I still haven't written. I think I will tonight. Just go back and forth. I think they're going to go. This guy that's now CEO of GTII, in my judgment, works for the shorts. Now, if I'm wrong, there's hope for GTII in the sense that he can refile the numbers and maybe because he's got a right. He's not giving it to you. He's doing it for himself because he's so talented. He's such a good man. He's been here through the fight, and he's here to rescue it for you. If it goes to $2, he makes either 10 or $20 million. I think it's $20 million he makes. Isn't that a good guy? But anyway, maybe the stock will go to 20 bucks. for you. I mean, to $2, sorry, $2 for you. Thoughts on all those broker dealers having an outage? Yeah, I think you could think that the system got overwhelmed. The system got overwhelmed, and that's happened before. I've been around when it all breaks down and the system gets overwhelmed. But I also think they certainly protect themselves and they get their trades off while we're not able to. They want you to believe that you need to put all your money under management, and then they get to cheat around the edges for years and years. Everybody gets paid. That smiling wealth manager who might as well be an insurance salesman for all the value they had. You know, I don't think they planned the outage so they could do their trades, but I don't think they put money into those systems. And I don't think they have the personnel or anyone to back it up. Most trading, Tom, in these stocks goes on with the small over-the-counter firms. I mean, the online firms like Schwab and TD and E-Trade and et cetera. Brokers, wealth advisors, 20,000 of them at Merrill Lynch and probably the same number at Morgan Stanley. They don't trade these stocks. They don't trade them. They wouldn't take your phone call about them either. I agree with that, Pete. I assume you're talking about GTII. I happen to agree with you. It's opinion. It's opinion. Everything on my show is opinion. I don't really have an update on MMTLP that's specific. And Julian, if you're still in MMTLP, you enjoy being the victim. It's time to move what is simply an accounting entry in your brokerage account and on your broker dealer's books that says, we owe Julian 1 share of NextBridge for every unit, every number here of MMTLP. MMTLP has no assets, no management. They do not have a law firm that's being paid to file lawsuits on your behalf. They have absolutely nothing. MMTLP is worthless. But guess what? For essentially free, you can call up your broker dealer and say, I would like to move MMTLP. It might cost you $80, $40, $60. I'd like to move my shares of MMTLP into NextBridge Hydrocarbons, which is a real company. And I'd like to do it at the transfer agent. I'd like to get my physical shares. And guess what? You don't need a lawyer. You don't need a class action suit. And you don't have to probably wait more than 5 or 6 weeks. You should do that, Julian, right away. You should not wait. You should run. You should sprint. You should hop on a skidoo and get there as quickly as you can. MMTLP expired, to my memory, expired on December 13th of last year, of 2 Decembers ago, right? It expired. It is no more. It's gone to the choir invisible. The only reason it's in your account is because it's been nailed there. Get out of MMTLP. Get out of it. You're a sucker if you don't, Julian. I say that politely. You're a sucker if you don't get out of MMTLP. On NextBridge, what I read isn't news, but they did their file. Remember, they had that crap accounting firm. So they had to redo, I think, 2 years. They made that filing of their annual report, I believe 3 weeks ago. Julian, you can look it up. They just made a filing of the first quarter's numbers. I don't know if the second quarter's numbers are available. Maybe those need to also be filed, but it should be pretty simple. It's not complicated. The good news there is I think it's, now I'm getting not into news, but prediction. I think it sets up for NextBridge to raise money. Why? What do they need money for? They need to drill 5 Ora Grande wells. I'm going to assume they're vertical wells. I'm going to assume they do not have to go to all 5 zones, which they talked about, that they have. I don't know if they used the word discovered, but they have at least delineated somewhat in their previous drilling and by seismic. I don't know if they have to go to their total depth has to be through all of those. My suspicion is they just have to get into one pay zone. I don't have the lease agreement. So it's not necessarily that it's going to be really expensive to drill these 5 wells, but that's up to the company. I'm sure the 5 wells will be drilled in areas that they can learn about all the zones, maybe learn about the extent of the volume of the reservoir. They're going to learn some science. Now, by getting the filings done, the annual report and the first quarter, and if need be, the second quarter, they can go raise that money. They can go raise that money. They need to drill 5 wells by the end of the year. It's not worth asking about it every time. They're going to do it. But they need to drill 5 wells. They need to spud and complete 5 wells by the end of December this year. They're running out of time, which I'm not trying to be critical. What I'm trying to say, it's happening. It's going to happen. Just by definition, they're going to have to raise that money sort of August, September, and get to work with their crews, building the platforms, which may already exist, bringing on the rigs. If they're going to do horizontal, they'll have to bring on a different rig, but I think maybe they'll just do verticals. They're going to have to bring in a completion rig, which might be the same rig. I don't know all that because I'm not talking to them. But I suspect each well could take 6 weeks to spud and complete. Could be more, I'm just guessing. And if they do them sequentially or at the same time, they might need two rigs. I don't know. All I can tell you, if they don't raise the money in August/September, it's going to be hard to raise the money in October/November and get all the wells drilled by the end of the year. So, Julian, I think it's great news. I believe that MMTLP is doing everything correctly in terms of getting their filings ready so they can do an offering. Now, who are they going to probably do the offering with? I'm going to guess it's Roth Capital. There's some risk there, I think, that the Roth Capital ends up representing, without realizing it, the shorts. But hey, it's the life we live. What price, you're going to say? What price are they going to raise shares? I'm going to guess, since the last deals they did were around $2 to $3 a share, and not much has changed. That's what I think. $2, $3, $4, $5 a share, maybe $7, maybe $10. I don't expect they'll get much more than $10 a share. But who knows? That's Greg McCabe's job. He has the reserve reports. You don't, I don't. He has the science and the seismic. He has the ability to tell Roth Capital, we want to do it at this amount. It's great, great news. But if you're an MMTLP, why does it matter to you? You've got nothing. 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 But if you're in NextBridge, if he drills those 5 wells and you're saying, well, there's no production yet, so they can't be worth anything. Well, get out of the oil business. But you can't. You're stuck. You're stuck. This is the largest, according to Torchlight, this is, to me, it could be the largest onshore discovery of oil. We'll see. But the geophysicist who discovered or did the initial work or claims to have in the Delaware Basin is the one doing this. They've been working on it for 15 years. They took ownership from 70% to 100%. They've drilled 15 or 20 wells already, and they're going to drill 5 more. These are not indications that they're not finding oil. These are indications that everything looks good to these oil men and oil women. So it is a huge positive that the company has made their filing of their annual report in the first quarter, and they're ready to raise money so they can drill 5 more wells and complete by the end of the year. But you want news. Any news? Any news? Any news? Well, you know, funny enough, Julian, the CEO called me. He's under an obligation to put out a press release, which you can follow on his website, to everyone. It's called Regulation FD. But instead, he just told me alone, and he's given me permission to tell you the news. Julian, if you get into NextBridge hydrocarbons, start going to www.nextbridgehydrocarbons.com and read the press releases. That's where you're going to find the news. That's where I'm going to find the news. Okay, so there's going to be a financing. You're going to be disappointed. Oh, gosh, it's at such a low number. I thought these shares were worth so much. Well, them's the breaks, because the criminals have been successful at putting maximum pressure on Torchlight and destroying the viability of these original finders and drillers and accumulators of this project. That's the stock market, and it's not going to change. However, these guys haven't quit. They haven't quit. They have not quit. But this raise might be at a lower price than you or I would like. But the question is, what are they going to do with the money? 2 things. They're going to drill 5 more wells. What does that do? Julian. That keeps the acreage. It allows them to keep the acreage they have. They won't lose the acreage. Now, what the criminals want, when it was a public company, they wanted to make it impossible for the company to keep the acreage. Why? Because the criminals don't care about anything except stealing money. And they go to church on Sunday or wherever. The second thing that's going to be done with the money that NextBridge Hydrocarbons raises is they're going to renew their leases, 5-year term. It's probably built in the leases. I've never seen the lease. And I heard it's going to cost $3 million to do so. That's the second benefit, Julian, of taking the time to hire a new auditor to replace the one that got in trouble, Borders or something. File your annual report. Oh, but it's taking so long. Is there any news? My gosh, I can't stand it. Well, luckily you can't trade the stock. So whether or not you're antsy, angry, upset that I'm presenting it this way, luckily for you, you can't sell it. I think, in my opinion, because when they raise this money, even if it helps out the shorts, even if it's at a lower price than we care to see, they're going to drill 5 wells, which holds the acreage, and it very likely help define the reservoirs down below and give them the science and the confidence to start doing volumetrics. 1. 2, they're going to extend their acreage for 5 years. And who could argue with that? That's like raising money for an airline fleet, and they're all leased. And if you don't renew the leases, the aircraft are all going to be taken away. That's a stupid investment. So they're going to re-up their leases. Huge, huge. The third thing is, if they see in their data that they need to buy additional leases they don't own, why would they go out and produce the wells and trumpet how good they are when they want to go buy more leases for next to nothing? Why would they go out and say, hey, we're big success? Instead of paying $35 to renew, they might have to pay $15,000. That's what leases are going for, or did. I don't know what they are now. You could spend $5,000 an acre, $10,000, $15,000 an acre. They're maybe spending $100,000. Why would they destroy their own upside story just to satisfy you? Oh, they found something. They have news. Oh, I'm worried. They haven't done anything. They're not producing. Why? You don't understand oil and gas. But why would they create competition? Why would they make it difficult to lease additional acreage or renew their acreage? Why? To satisfy you because you're getting impatient? Or me? I own the stock too. It doesn't make any sense. You're in a private company. Well, no, you're not. You're an MMTLP because you listen to Double D on Twitter. If you're in MMTLP, you are a complete knucklehead. But if you're in NextBridge, just get used to it. You're in a private company. It's not going to trade. There's not going to be a settlement. There's not going to be a resolution. Before the company, NextBridge, drills 5 more wells, maybe horse trades some wells in Louisiana, increases its acreage position, possibly, and renews its acreage position. And you're not likely to hear anything about the reserves, about the ability to produce, until they buy additional leases if they want to, and until they renew leases. And you're going to say, you're going to listen to the people on Twitter, you're going to say, oh, the company's nothing. Well, that's not oil and gas, pal. That's not oil and gas. Oil and gas is about locking down the acreage, financing it, drilling it, seismic, and then hopefully owning the sweet spot of the acreage. And in this case, they may own it all. They may own it all, but they might want to buy some more. You don't want to hear it. There's nothing. My money was stolen. I didn't get a squeeze. And I'm entitled. MMTLP, I'm entitled. Get that all out of your head. Move your shares to NextBridge. Move your shares. If they have 5 billion barrels in this project, I have no idea. This is, I've heard 3.4 to as high as 11. Let's say 5. But now, let's cut that. Let's cut that. Let's chop that. Let's just say they have 2 billion barrels. They just have 2 billion barrels recoverable of oil. They need to drill more wells. They have to secure their leases before they make the price too high. But if they can prove this up at 2 million barrels, Exxon just bought Pioneer. Now, Pioneer was an advanced production, almost industrial production. They paid almost $30 a barrel for proven reserves. Oil's going to come down, I think. When the markets get in trouble, oil will probably be down. But before NextBridge is sold, I think oil could be $100, $200, $300 a barrel. Instead of $30 yet, let's use $20, that they sell the company for $20 a barrel. Maybe they never sell, but I'm just trying to give you a back of the envelope number. $20 a barrel. Now, you remember, Julian, they increased their ownership to 100%. They were at 70%. Is that a sign that there's trouble? Maybe. So I'm going to assume if they sold it for $20, that's $40 billion stock and cash. I'm going to assume they net out 90%. Why? Because there's got to be some other things in there I don't know about. So we'll call that 36 billion. 36 billion. And I'm going to recheck my numbers to make sure I'm not exaggerating this. So if they find 2 billion barrels of oil recoverable and they sell it for $20, that's 40 billion times 0.9. They maybe net $36 billion in a sale, cash and stock. But I want to know about it now. All right, just there's 260 million shares outstanding. There's 260 million shares outstanding, but let's cross that out and let's use the 500 million that's authorized. They're not all outstanding. So we'll divide 36 billion by 500 million. And I think in a very conservative level, you have an asset potentially worth $72 a share if you own NextBridge. That's I chopped the amount of shares. I chopped the price the amount of barrels. I chopped the price per barrel. I used the maximum number of shares. I tried to get a number that is conservative and that is a reasonable target for this discovery if it works out. How do you know it works out? They keep drilling. If it were failing, they'd stop after 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 wells. They're now into their 25 wells, I think. They're keeping going. So, Julian, you can hang on to MMTLP. You can hang on to MMTLP, which is worthless. Or you can move to NextBridge, which I think in a very conservative sort of 3-year time frame could be worth $72 a share. And I know you didn't pay more than 8 for it or 12. You have to wait. And you might not get news every single day. And forget all this argument about a resolution and that you're entitled and that they're going to do. Who's they? They are going to give you something for MMTLP. Move your shares to NextBridge. Let me use that in my terms because I don't know how many shares you bought. I wish I had bought more. I bought 4,269 MMTLP. I transferred the rest of my shares in January. I couldn't believe I still could do it. I couldn't believe that all the shares of NextBridge weren't spoken for. It's because you guys are listening to Double D. Stop listening to him. Anyway, I transferred it. So I now have 4,269 shares of NextBridge hydrocarbons. I paid about $7.96. I think some at $7.96, some at $7.98, some at $7.94. Let's use $7.96. And it was the last 2 days. Or it was Wednesday, it was Tuesday, Wednesday, or it was Wednesday, Thursday. I can't remember. And they stopped trading on Friday. Terrible at this. Okay, so I paid $33,500 approximately. I paid $33,554 for MMTLP. Now, Julian, if I were an idiot, if I were a victim, if I just wanted to sit here and have faith in Double D, I'd leave my shares in MMTLP. And right now, they're worth 0. They always will be worth 0. I would never get anything except maybe if somebody, who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? Who is going to pay for the law firms to drive a lawsuit? Who's going to do it? It's probably going to take tens of millions of dollars to prosecute a lawsuit, if not $100 million. Who's going to pay for it? Right now, I said to myself, I can't hire an attorney. So I'm going to move my shares. I moved some last August. I couldn't believe I was able to move the rest in January of this year. So now I have NextBridge, which I paid $33,000 for, $34,000. But instead of being worth zero, ignoring, oh, Congress, I'm entitled if Congress helps me. I'm entitled if a journalist helps me. I'm entitled, they are going to have a lawsuit. They are going to do something. I'm entitled. Screw all that. Screw it. Take action. Move your MMTLP to NextBridge. Now, what can happen with NextBridge? NextBridge could have cash distributions. It's not happening right now. I can't believe it. My money was stolen. We've already been through 16 months. It's all unfair. Woe is me. Okay, I got it. But we're in this situation. We're in this situation. I should have been able to have a short squeeze. I agree. I'm mad about that too. Do you have the money to prosecute the lawsuit? I don't think so. So anyway, they could, if they drill these wells, they're not going to start producing in the Oro Grande for tax reasons. Apparently, the owner of University Lands, who has some of this, there's some tax reasons that if they don't start producing, they don't have to step up the valuation, which the owner of University Lands and NextBridge would then have to pay taxes on until they start producing. I don't expect NextBridge to start really producing meaningful oil and gas until after they add to their acreage position and they renew their acreage leases. So personally, I don't expect production until next year. Why? Because that's prudent. Wouldn't be prudent to do it sooner. Why? They want to pay the lowest price they can to add acreage. They want to pay the lowest price they can to renew their leases. That's my theory anyway. But next year, when they start cash flowing, they could pay dividends. They could pay cash flow out of these wells. They could flip their southern Louisiana wells for a profit. Remember, I paid $8 a share. If next year they paid $1 a share in dividends, that reduces my cost basis theoretically, depending on how you want to do it. But they could sell a well out of southern Louisiana that was drilled and went gangbusters. They might distribute $10. Anyway, you don't get that cash distribution in MMTLP. If you stay in MMTLP, all you get is cost. The cost to fund a lawsuit, and you don't have the money. Move to NextBridge. You could get cash distribution slowly that could replace your entire investment. Also, I would use a 3-year time frame. My calculation just now, in a 3-year time frame, maybe sell it at $72 a share to a major. I think personally, my number is much, much higher, 1,000. But let's go with a conservative number. It's not a huge deal, but conceivably I'm going to use 3 years, but you want to know news now. What's the news now? What's the resolution now? What have you heard an update? It gives me a charge every time I get on a space call. I'm upset. And Double D tells me there I'm entitled. Stop it. No one's looking out for you. You're not entitled to FO. Not under this current regime of thieves and corrupt cops. So if you move over to NextBridge, and I used a conservative number, for me, maybe my $35,000 turns into $300,000 in 3 years. Oh God, I gotta wait 3 years. I was supposed to get a short squeeze in 2 days. It's so unfair. Yeah, it's unfair. But Julian, if you leave your investment of cash, your hard cash in MMTLP, my prediction is 0. You're going to get 0 in 3 years. Maybe in 8 years, you get some payback from a lawsuit or a class action, or maybe the criminals can't sleep at night and they send you a check. But my prediction, you'll be a victim and you'll get 0. Move your shares from MMTLP to NextBridge. You have a chance of cash distributions, maybe dividend, maybe a sale, proceeds of sale. And I think if the whole company gets sold, I'm using $72, using my own situation. I paid $8 a share, 35,000, 36,000, 35,000, actually 34,000 purchase price. Conservatively, I might have to wait 3 years. I might get 300 grand back. But it's not the short squeeze, and I'm entitled to a short squeeze. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're not entitled to anything in this market. It's a jungle. They are thieves. They own the cops. They own the regulators. They own the broker dealers. They own the journalists, and they just don't care. You, Julian, care about yourself and your family. Move your MMTLP, which is worth 0, into something using my ownership, which could be worth $300,000 on a conservative basis. If it works, it could still be worth 0. But if it works, maybe I have $300,000. I'm going to stop talking about MMTLP. My frustration comes, Julian, that these aren't hard concepts. What you're being fed a line of bull manure on the Twitter Spaces by people who were being paid off to mislead you, in my judgment, in my opinion, and in my editorial right on this production. The concept is not hard. You invested cash because you saw the imbalance in the market caused by the criminals, and you thought, wow, I could see a short squeeze here. FINRA, illegally, fraudulently, in my judgment, stopped trading. They lied to you. They took away what was an excellent short covering profit from you. The SEC does not care. NASDAQ does not care. Over-the-counter markets do not care. And most of all, FINRA does not care. Further, Congress doesn't care. Otherwise, they would have taken care of it by now. It's not hard. Journalism doesn't care. The criminals don't care. Right now, there's a lot of energy because there's 60,000 people fighting, and I'm fighting, and I'm not going to go away. But slowly they'll move away, they'll die, they'll get on with something else, and then the energy will be gone. And if you're in MMTLP, you have F all. Now, what did Wall Street, it's not hard to understand. What did Wall Street owe you? It's right there in like color TV. It's right there in black and white. Wall Street owed you 1 share of NextBridge for every share of MMTLP. Yeah, but they owe me for the short squeeze. No, they don't. No, they don't. They halted the short squeeze. They took it away. No judge, no congresswoman, no senator is going to give you the return you think you deserved in a short squeeze, or to me. They're just not going to do it. It's not going to happen. No way, no how is the potential of the short squeeze ever going to be given en masse to everybody. It's just not going to happen. Now, maybe there'll be a payout based on what looks like some of the trades that went off at high numbers, but that has to be proven in court. You have to pay for the attorneys. You've got to get through the arbitration clause. You've got to get through the liars on the other side that are going to say, no, that never happened. And you don't have the money to fight it. Stop feeling entitled to a short squeeze. It's almost, come December, it'll be 2 years. If this was such an egregious violation, and if you were entitled to the return of a short squeeze, it would have been taken care of by now. It's not going to happen. So what is what Wall Street owed to you? It's right there in the document. MMTLP in the filings. MMTLP, 1 share. Wall Street owes you 1 real share of NextBridge hydrocarbons. But you're listening to Double D, and it's been almost 2 years, and you're still in MMTLP. Do you know, without paying for a lawyer, without filing a lawsuit, without writing reports and researching and getting discovery and putting piles and piles of documents in front of a judge, do you know right now you can ask Wall Street, and it's on you, unfortunately. According to FINRA, what I read, it's on you. It's your responsibility to ask. Normally, they should just give it to you, but they put in that it's your responsibility. So if you ask for 1 share of NextBridge for every share of MMTLP, you get something real. And according to my calculations for my own position, you will probably 10x if you paid $8. You'll get probably 10x your investment. My guess is within 3 years. If you paid $1, you're going to make much more than that. If you paid $2, you're going to make much more than that. But you're in a private company, which means you got to put it on the back burner. If there's news, Greg McCabe is going to put it out on his website. He's not going to tell me. We can check while we're talking and make sure that part of my frustration, though, is I just answered the same question over and over and over again. And my guess is, Julian, you shouldn't be an investor in a private company. That's my guess, but I don't know. Maybe you can. So on July 17th, NextBridge Hydrocarbons provided an update on SEC filings. The company wishes to inform shareholders that it filed its annual report with the SEC for 2023. It also included, I'm using my own words, a restatement of the 2022 annual report. They had to spend money, that takes time. NextBridge wishes to acknowledge the decision to re-audit the 22 financial statements was because they changed the auditor. There's an impairment on the Oro Grande property. And then the chairman said, in light of the events surrounding our former accounting firm, it was determined to re-audit the 2022 financial statements. While this has regrettably delayed other filings, I believe it's in the best interest of shareholders to ensure that as we move forward, we grow and we stand on solid ground. We are diligently working at completing the remaining filings, which will become forthcoming shortly. The company owns 134,000 contiguous gross acres in the Oro Grande Basin. It's massive. It's massive. It's a massive holding. But unfortunately, you have to wait. It's a private company. You just have to wait. If you're in MMTLP, I don't even know why I'm wasting my breath. There will be no resolution quickly. There will be no resolution that's more than what you can get from NextBridge. And that's just a fact. All right, so on July 31, they filed their quarterly report with the SEC, and they put in their balance sheet. It's hard, it's in very small print, so it's hard for me to read. The loss on common share was 0 versus 6 cents. So that's pretty good improvement. The weighted average number of shares outstanding is 249 million. I used 500 million shares in my calculation. The net loss anyway, they do have a net loss carry forward. I don't see it here, but it's really big. It's normal. It's an accounting item. You take deductions for your equipment and your drilling and your other tangible and intangible costs. So it shows up as a loss. That means as the company makes money, you get distributions and the company doesn't have to pay taxes on them. It's good for you. Okay, so as of March 31, 2024, NextBridge had not yet achieved profitable operations. They had a net loss of almost 900,000 for the 3 months, the first quarter. And it looks like their loss carry forward is about $47 million. It's good. If and when they sell the company, take that off the profit. Or if they start earning money, and this is, Julian, something with oil and gas. The metric to look for in oil and gas is cash flow, not earnings, because there's so many accounting gimmicks. They're legal. They're all legal. To reduce earnings, to reduce taxes, that you want to look for cash flow, not earnings. But anyway, if they get earnings, they have plenty of tax write-offs against it, and that's good news for you. They talk about the Hazel project, and that's something he can spin off. They have Louisiana projects. They talk about that. I'm going to skip it. It's not worth going into. He took over the loan commitment to MMAT, which I think is a sign of confidence. They had a legal situation that resolved in their favor called Cordex in Valuation Technologies. There's an executive summary if you want to go read it. But basically, NextBridge Hydrocarbons became a company in Nevada in August of 21. And blah, 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 Torchlight, blah, 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 blah. They have the Oro Grande project, which is subject to the University Lands Development and Drilling Unit Agreement. For within a specified period of time following the initial drilling of 5 wells, each participant can assign the interests of the company in exchange for $1.20 a share. So that's how their investors can get out, I guess. I don't see anybody willing to do that. I'm just skimming through page after page after page of the filing, which, Julian, you can do yourself. You can go to the SEC website and you can pull this down yourself and you can read it. You can study it. I must have skipped over I want to go over for you the management's discussion. Okay. They used $7 million last year to acquire and drill on the Johnson prospect. In the University Lands drilling agreement, they have to drill 5 vertical wells this year. There's not much discussion, management discussion. That's why I skipped over it. All right, Julian, that's my answer on NextBridge hydrocarbons. If you own MMTLP, shame on you. Now, while this is getting ready to go, it's so slow. So slow. All right, I can see. I agree with you, Pete the Geek, the Greek, Pete the Greek. It's too slow. It's too slow. Give up on that. I give up on that computer. I agree with that, Pete. I think you're right. I'm going to leave that. David, yeah, Julian, you're welcome to my answer. I'm sorry I get worked up, but it's my own frustration because somehow I'm not getting it across. So I just figure I've got to be blunt. But it's a good investment, I think. I'm worried about Roth. Not so, well, I know Roth and the guy running it does a lot of pipes, and pipes are just a vehicle to help the shorts. But that's the system we're in. I think he's an honest guy and they're an honest group. But it's much better as a private company that McCabe is going to go raise money limited to those uses I just told you. So even if this deal isn't that attractive to us, by adding 5 wells that increase probably the reserves that are known, provable, probably, and adding 5 years to the leases and maybe adding additional leases, the net value to our shares, even though the issuance of new shares is not at a great price, it's just the boat we're in. It's the hole we're in. Yay, Julian! Yay, Julian! You already have NextBridge. You're the best. So I was totally wrong. Good for you, Julian. Good for you. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm so happy to hear that. When will we know the transfer agent is full? I actually think, even though I'm being so urgent with you, I think there's plenty of room at the transfer agent because no one's moving. Not no one, but I would, if I had to guess, there's probably still somewhere between 25 and 50 million shares available at the transfer agent. It's a pure speculation on my part, pure guess. But people aren't moving. But I think there'll come a time when people go, aha, just like I'm telling you, and go, I got to get over there. And then you may not have enough time. The added benefit of moving is you give Greg McCabe the power to negotiate with Congress or with the other side and say, you know what? We have all the shares we're ever going to have. Anything that's in those brokerage accounts is counterfeit. David, Wes is paid for by a group of wealthy shareholders. If they want to continue the lawsuit, maybe they will. But David, I've lost my stomach for this fight. I'm not going to stop. But I think we have to, we're running out of time. We have to focus on what we can each do to make money. Screw the lawsuits. Let's make money in the stock market. But yes, I think if people have that kind of money, they would pay Wes Christian, and they would probably be within their rights, subject to. I believe there's a 2-year time frame where our rights to sue expire. Wall Street has every angle covered, but I'm not a lawyer. The other thing is, David, if you sold your shares at $72, what loss are you going to claim in court? What loss are you going to claim in court? I'm telling you, David, no judge is going to award shareholders, let's make it up, $1 trillion in short squeeze damages. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. My shares don't say MMTLP, they say NextBridge Hydrocarbons. Are they at your brokerage firm? And if they're at your broker dealer and they say NextBridge Hydrocarbons, they're also worth 0. They're nothing. It's just a placeholder. You have to move your shares of MMTLP out of your brokerage account to the transfer agent. And you'll probably receive shares, physical shares at home. What's the name of the placeholder? If you go to www. Go to www.nextbridgehydrocarbons.com. If you click investors and you go to, let's see if this is it. If you go to the news story, let me see if this is it. Okay. If you go to the news story, Miguel, on February 16th of 2023, it's entitled NextBridge Hydrocarbons provides statement regarding its spinoff. There's no current public market. The transfer agent for our common stock is American Stock Transfer and Trust. It's now called some other thing, Equinity or something. It's the same phone numbers. There is a phone number there. All shares have been distributed. You can call AST Stock Transfer on 718-921-8124. It's called Equinity. You can call them at 718-921-8124. You can call the transfer agent on 718-921-8124. They'll give you the instructions. You can also call your broker dealer and they will tell you how to do it. It's not complicated. Call your broker dealer. Ring, ring. I would like to transfer my shares of MMTLP into physical shares of NextBridge Hydrocarbons. If they give you a runaround, you might be too late at your brokerage firm. If they give you a runaround, just stand your ground. Call the transfer agent. You can go to www.nextbridgehydrocarbons.com. And on February of 2023, they issued their first instructions on how to do it. Call the transfer agent. The transfer agent will walk you through how to do it. Call your broker dealer. Ask them to transfer your shares to you, to the transfer agent. They'll say, we have to send the physical shares to you at home. That's fine. That's okay. When they do that, they'll set up an account at the transfer agent for you. They're probably going to debit your account $60. I think that's fine. They're going to say they're going to do it. Call them several times afterward and make sure it's in process. But it's going to probably take 5 weeks to get those shares to deliver to you. When you have your physical shares, you automatically have an account at the transfer agent. You can hang on to your physical shares if you want to, but you can also send them into the transfer agent. And then you don't have to do anything else. Your shares are in with the transfer agent. Either way, they have that record. You either have the physical shares or they're at the transfer agent. if the company ever were to be sold, automatically the transfer agent would wire their entire block of shares on your behalf, let's say to Chevron. Chevron bought it all, and you would end up with Chevron shares that you could deliver to your brokerage account. But that's down the road. That's down the road. Right now, call your broker dealer. Talk to your dedicated account services team. I would like to register and ship my shares of NextBridge hydrocarbon. Rosa, I don't think they're going to let Trump win. I think your next president is going to be Kamala Harris. So I mean, I hear what Ham's saying, but I don't think, Rosa, FingerMotion at $2, in my judgment, based on interviews I've done with the CEO and he's done with others, by their presentations, by press releases, it's my judgment that FingerMotion has a strong potential fundamental story in 5 or 6 areas. Low margin text messaging, low margin top-up minutes, but repeatable. Pretty high margin, rich content messaging. It's just taking hold. It's based on 5G. Apple Care, which warranty business, I think that's on hold for our purposes, probably for a couple of years, but it's still out there. They just got a contract, which I think is a huge breakthrough for the company, but it doesn't show a lot of revenue yet. But it's for all rescue vehicles in the country. They are a toll booth for access to the online shopping that is so popular nowadays. They have their Juju app, or whatever the hell it's called, that allows people to use their phone at 440,000 locations to charge their vehicles with electricity, and they get a piece of that action. That just rolled out. They have big data. They have access to all of the telecoms data, China Telecom, China Unicom, and the other one, I can't remember. 3 of them. This data, they have spent money working with Munich Life Re and Pacific Life. The goal is to take this data and turn it into insurance products. They've been working on it now for 2 years. They're in the 2nd stage of that. They have scientists, and at some point they'll roll out their products. It can be fire insurance, car insurance, motorcycle insurance, boat insurance, health insurance, death insurance, cat insurance. Insurance from ever having to answer another question that's the same question again. I wonder how much that would cost. So anyway, FingerMotion at $2 is under constant selling pressure, because that's what the system does to all stocks under $10, under $500 million in market cap. And it's especially true that the system does this to stocks that get on the NASDAQ, because once they're on the NASDAQ, they can create derivatives, which is just another word of saying that they can sell stock they don't own and somehow create a document to offload the risk to somebody else. And on the NASDAQ, Adina Friedman doesn't care. She's in the business helping criminals short stock because they create the derivative products, and it makes money for her alma mater, for her alma mater, Carlyle Group. So the thesis I have, Rosa, for FingerMotion is you should own it or sell it if you don't like it. You don't want to wait anymore. You should own it or add to it at $2. I think the fundamentals will get it to $3. There's only 52 million shares outstanding. Call it 50 million. It's 100 million valuation. I think that's cheap if some of these things come to fruition. It's not without risk. Now, I think they're shorting the stock because the company needs to raise the money, they said. What if the company raises money using debt instead of equity? Now, Rose, on top of that, Ham just said there's an investment bank that might come out with a research report. On top of that, I think they've got one of the best CEOs in the business. So if you can own the stock and wait and let the good things catch up with all the doubt and urgency, I think you can see a $3, $4, $5, even $6 stock over the next months, or maybe it takes longer. And if you're in it too, and it goes to $4, you double your money, and that's a great return anywhere on the planet. Now, if that happens, and the stock starts having repeatable, predictable, growing revenue, cash flow, and earnings, I think the shorts, if there are the size that we've been told, I think stock can go to get involved in a short squeeze. But I think you have to stop putting pressure on yourself that every bloody little thing is going to cause a squeeze. That's just my opinion. It's just mine. Buy it for its fundamentals, hope for a squeeze. Don't buy it for a short squeeze. That's my opinion. And as far as a plan B is concerned, I don't think they're going to let Trump win. I don't think replacing Gary Gensler with anybody is going to change anything. We've got to stop, in my opinion, after 2 years of fighting this, we've got to stop believing that the system is going to protect us. It will not protect us. So we have to start trading with our knowledge that we have. Rosa, I think FingerMotion could double or triple from here. And that's a good trade. If if your shares in your account, and let me guess, Ameritrade. If your shares at Ameritrade say NextBridge hydrocarbons, I can sell you a watch down in Chinatown. I'll go buy it for you. It says, I'll go buy the watch for you. It says Rolex on it. I can buy some, there's bags down there that say Fendi. If it's in your account and it says NextBridge hydrocarbons, it's as fake as a $4 bill. I agree with that, beat the Greek. I totally agree with that. Gensler's going to be Secretary of Treasury under a Biden administration. I don't think it's going to $4 right away. I mean, I actually think there's a chance with logic over 9 months to a year that it could get to $1.50 to $2 a share. And in that scenario, there could be a brief blip of a squeeze. And I think I looked at the charts, the one, and $4 could happen in a little short squeeze. But I'm not trying to get you to look at it for that. It's 2 cents. If it went to 20 cents or 40 cents or I'm starting to believe that Logic could be a good stock to hold, and maybe you're right, it goes to $4. It's a huge move. But let's let the news, let's let the announcements, let us see where it's going. Right now, the one, if you bought Logic at 2 cents, and if for some reason over the next, say, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, it traded over, let's say, $1 a share, $1.20, I'd be tempted in my shares to sell and then try to buy it back at 30 or 40 cents when it pulled back. I might not sell all of it, but anyway, that's what I would do. Thank you, Doug, for your thoughts. I don't think it's reckless. I think it's trying to see what's coming in if Trump wins. And we all hope for the SEC to enforce the rules. But guys, I'm telling you, and girls, I'm telling you, Wall Street is corrupt. And they have manufactured stock that doesn't exist in MMTLP, NextBridge, to the point that it's probably 10 to 1. 10 to 1. But they haven't, that's not the only stock they've done it to. They do it everywhere. Why do they do it everywhere? It expands assets under management. They make money on the stock loan desk. They get to make money on fees. They get commissions. And it all is glorious as long as the Fed, which is owned by the banks, the Treasury, which is owned by the banks, the government, which is owned by the banks, issue debt on a scale that's unfathomable, they can continue to take money out of the markets for their own benefit, tell you that Trump's a jerk, Kamala's great, white men are misogynists, and we can all feel good about the government when in fact the government is just there to help the banks purloin your tax dollars, take your future, steal the American dream, so a few white men can get richer than Croesus. And while we're out fighting in the streets, Kamala, slightly dark woman, yay, we're white women for Kamala, we feel great. While we do all that, they're going to start wars on the behalf of the banks. They're going to destroy our future so they can get trillions of dollars in their own pocket. Wall Street is not going to, the SEC is not ever going to enforce settlement. Never will the SEC, FINRA, Congress enforce settlement. Only after a financial collapse, in my opinion, will that come. Now, in individual stocks, if it happens that the prime brokers start feeling the pain of losses, you could get short squeezes then in individual stocks. And that may happen. That very well may happen in FingerMotion. Very well may happen. Very well may happen in FingerMotion. Okay, how about shares that are from the original Torchlight? Do you think it still has to be transferred to the transfer agent? Yes, I think you still have to transfer. But VECARE.A, you raise a point that I have a document here. I'm not going to be able to find it quickly, but it shows what the bashers are looking for, the guys that are representing the shorts. And then I have documents which have arguments in court cases. So you're going to see the you're going to see the argument from the other side if it ever gets to court. One argument's going to be, Your Honor, they don't deserve anything. Those shareholders of MMTLP do not deserve anything because they were speculating. That'll be their first gambit. The second gambit will be only original Torchlight shareholders deserve the dividend. Now, I don't think that's going to fly because they've already invited everyone else to transfer. You've had all the time in the world to transfer. So your right to those shares are just sitting there, and you're not exercising your right to those shares. You're ignoring it. You're abandoning your shares. And so I don't think that that argument that the original shareholders of Torchlight deserve the shares in lieu of people who bought MMTLP in the open market based on what MMTLP represented. I don't think that's going to fly. But they're going to argue that. Then they're going to argue, well, we only owe the $3 that the stock closed, the $3 that the stock closed at on December 8th, 7th, 8th, whatever it was. Whatever. I don't think that's going to fly, but they're going to try to do that. Then they're going to argue, well, we only owe the people who bought into this, we only owe what they paid. I don't think that's going to fly either, but they're going to argue all these things. And it's going to take months, if not years. And then they'll argue, well, the most we should pay is the recent fundings that NextBridge did to buy shares, to buy interest in the Louisiana wells. And I don't know. It's hard to calculate what that was, but maybe $2.50 a share, because that's all the company judged their own shares were worth. I don't think that's fair, because any trade that's made, you have to, you're bargaining with the other side and you're trying to get it done. But anyway, they'll argue that. They'll argue the most we have to pay is $8 or $10 or $12, which is the highest anyone paid. The last thing they're going to agree to, and I did videos, and VECARE.A, I made arguments that I think that they owe you the value of the oil in the ground divided by the number of shares non-diluted at the time of the distribution. And I came up with numbers in the $1,000 a share range. And I think those are plausible. Can we expect them? I have no idea. Greg McCabe posted on Twitter that a settlement, as he called it, or somebody called it, maybe he didn't, had better start with a 600, or his answer is not only no, it's hell no, and here's a lawsuit. So I think big numbers could be coming if somebody pays for the lawsuit. But VECARE.A, if your shares say in your broker dealer's account, NextBridge Hydrocarbons, that is still a placeholder with a CUSIP number so that your brokerage firm can keep track of their obligation to you. They've given no indication that they intend to overpay on that obligation. In fact, they've given no indication they intend to pay anything at all. It still is worthless. It's still expired. Just because they call MMTLP NextBridge doesn't mean you have shares of NextBridge. You need to take that MMTLP that you bought, which expired on December 13th and is worthless. You need to ask your broker dealer, ring broker dealer, client services, I would like to transfer my shares of MMTLP, which you call NextBridge Hydrocarbons. I would like to transfer those to the transfer agent soonest. Well, it says NextBridge in your account. It's not. How do I know that? The stocks are not, the NextBridge Hydrocarbons is not eligible to be traded electronically or to be recorded electronically in your account. You could ask your special client services guy, why are you holding a private company in my account? They don't allow it anymore. They don't keep anything in safekeeping. They're just continuing the charade. And so VECARE.A, please call them tomorrow and move your shares. Get it done before everyone else tries to get it done. Get it done while Double D is confusing everyone. Just move your shares, please. If I get $50 a share, I would sell. Well, right now you would. But what if the company discovers and can prove and has an engineering report that puts out it's proved developing, it's 1P, it's proved undeveloped, it's 2P, it's probables, 3P, it's possibles, 4P, and they do an analysis and they divide it out and it comes out to $600 a share. Would you then sell your shares at $50? Don't be an amateur. If you're not serious about your money, I can't be serious about your money. When does DJT run again? I have no idea. I have no idea. I would buy I would try to see if I could buy calls for December or November that weren't too expensive and then forget about it. If not, I would try to buy the August or September calls. But I think DJT runs again if and when the poll numbers show that Donald Trump is beating Kamala Harris. But they're not going to let the poll numbers show that. They're going to show that Kamala is tied. They're going to show that she's going to win Minnesota and Michigan. They're going to show that she's ahead in Georgia. They're going to show that she's tied in Pennsylvania. They're going to show that Arizona is a toss-up. They're going to make in the polls, Virginia, blue state. They're going to do all of this so when the election comes, and at 4:30 in the morning, they need more votes to counteract the overwhelming turnout from Trump. They can find those votes because they're in the ballot delivery systems. They're in the mail-in ballots. They're in the truck full of ballots pre-signed that drives from New York down to Philadelphia, and no one doubts it. They are going to make sure that the simps and the women in the blue states who read the New York Times and the Washington Post and listen to CNN, ABC, CBS, MSNBC have enough evidence to believe that Kamala Harris actually got 89 million votes on election day, and she's the single most popular presidential candidate in history who never got a vote for presidency before this 90 days. They just need to convince enough people that the election was fair, and they can go on and install this what will be the single most popular president in the history of the United States. An Indian woman by heritage with her mother, and her mother's birth certificate says Caucasian, and a father who is of Irish descent and Indian descent and a smidgen of African American or black. It was the Ku Klux Klan that came up with the idea, if you have one drop of blood of somebody else, you're not white. Well, now it's the Democratic Party's view that that's the case. I find it all ridiculous. I find it all stupidity in the greatest degree. But that's the modern Democratic Party. I guess I have 3 years to transfer out. No, you don't. No, you don't. No. But anyway, if you want to, you're just a sucker. If you don't take your money seriously yourself, I'm not going to take it seriously. Wait 3 years. And if you believe you can transfer then, go ahead. I've poured my soul, my efforts, my anger, my calmness, everything I can do for a year and a half to tell you to move your effing MMTLP to the real NextBridge. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Don't do it. Take the risk. There's no upside to the risk. Take all the risk of your stupid comment that you have 3 years to transfer. Take the risk. There's zero upside to that, taking that risk, and there's all downside. But please, go ahead and wait 3 years. That will allow other people to go get their real shares. Robinhood has an IPO date. Well, that's interesting information. I would trust everything I hear from Robinhood. Hey, Jordan, how are you? You agree with Rosa? I forgot what Rosa said. Rosa's a good person. Oh, Plan B. Jordan, I think Plan A, Plan B, Plan C is price. I think the only way to hurt these bastards is in the pocketbook. And if the price of Finger goes up and stays up, that's when you finally see the prime brokers doing their job and the broker dealers doing their job. The broker dealers will ask for a receipt. The prime brokers will ask for more collateral. Otherwise, they're going to close the transaction. That's how I see it. Okay, here, so VECARE.A, RC from New York says, I had original shares and also purchased MMTLP. In June, I moved all of them, both kinds, from E-Trade. It took about 4 weeks. That's right. I have E-Trade, and it took 4 weeks from the time they said they initiated it, which was March 1 this year. But I started calling them in January. So I think there's some debate on where the starting point is. But anyway, it took about 4 weeks. Maria, what do you do about a problem like Maria? How do you hold the rainbow? I'm tired of it all, Maria. I'm tired. Maria. That skinny whale? Hey, skinny whale. Is it Mariah or is it Maria? Maria is a beautiful name, named after probably the most important human being ever to live. Unless you count her son as a human being, which he was. He probably was more important than she. But if you count her son as God, but hi, Maria. Thank you. I miss Skinny Whale. Fidelity won't let me move NextBridge shares that are in your SEP IRA. There is, and I think it's on their website, but there's a company which I remember right now called Advanta. But there are companies out there that you can set up your own self-directed IRA or SEP IRA, and they will accept MMTLP for you as it gets converted into NextBridge hydrocarbons. What I did, Pit Lolly Roller, is I moved my shares out of my IRA, and they make you sign a thing. So I have to pay taxes on the distribution, but it was worthless. It has no value. As far as I know, it has absolutely no value. So I'm going to check with an accountant, of course, but I would argue that I don't have to pay taxes on that. In any event, even if I had to pay taxes, it would be so de minimis, it probably wouldn't matter. I moved it to my regular account and I had those shares shipped. What do I lose by doing that? I'm no longer in the umbrella of a tax exempt account. So if I take a profit, I have to pay taxes. But realistically, I'm not able to sell it anyway. I'm not going to sell it. And frankly, I personally believe I won't sell it until the company sells itself. And that'll be likely a non-taxable event. It's a company I would hold for a long time to collect dividends. It's in oil and gas. Uh, uh, so anyway, there you have two choices. You can find a company, and I think the one is called Advanta, Advanta. You can look it up. Other people would know, where you could move your NextBridge and hold them in a SEP form. That's just a rule that Fidelity has. And the other is to have Fidelity move them out of your SEP to your regular account and then transfer. I'm getting the impression that Fidelity has already allocated all the real shares they have. So they may just be stalling you because it may already be too late. That's the other thing. There may be a plenty of shares out there, but in any one brokerage firm, like Fidelity, they may have already issued all their real shares, but I don't think so. Don't give up. Maria soy cubana. Soy is cubana. So it's a Cuban name, Maria. Maria. All right, just for my own sanity, I'm going to finish this chapter. The stocks, everything after market is red. But I'm going to finish this chapter on precious metals. So in the Weimar Republic, before World War I, just before the end of the war, the exchange rate between gold and the German mark was about 100 marks per ounce of gold. By 1920, it was between 1,000 and 2,000 marks per an ounce of gold. Retail prices shortly followed suit, rising by 10 to 20 times. Anyone who still had savings, which they had accumulated during the war, became bewildered when they found out their savings could only buy 10% or less of what their savings could buy just a year or two earlier. Then, through the rest of 1920 and the first half of 1921, inflation slowed. So on the surface, the future was beginning to look a little brighter. That's kind of how it feels like now. Here, the economy was recovering, business and industrial production was up, but now there were war reparations to pay. So the government never stopped printing currency. In the summer of 1921, prices started rising again, and by July of 1922, prices had risen another 700%. This was the breaking point. And what broke was people's confidence in their economy and in their currency. Having watched the purchasing power of their savings fall by 90% in 1919, they knew this time around they better do something. All at once, the entire country's attitude toward currency changed. The aha moment. People knew that if they held on to their currency for any period of time, they'd get burned. Rising prices would wipe out the purchasing power of their currency. Suddenly, everyone started to spend their currency as soon as they got it. The currency became a hot potato, and nobody wanted it. After the war, Germany made the first reparation payments to France. Most of Germany's gold, and made up the balance with iron, coal, wood, and other materials. But it simply did not have the resources to make the second payment. France thought Germany was just trying to weasel its way out of paying. So in January of 1923, France and Belgium invaded and occupied the Ruhr. the industrial heartland of Germany. The invading troops took over the iron and steel factories, coal mines, and railways. In response, the German Weimar Republic adopted a policy of passive resistance and non-cooperation, paying the factory workers not to work. This was the last nail in the German mark's coffin. Meanwhile, the German government put its printing presses into overdrive. According to the front page of the New York Times, February 9, 1923, Germany had 33 printing plants, which were belching out 45 billion German marks every day. By November, it was 500 quadrillion marks being printed a day. 500 quadrillion. And you think it can't happen here. The German public's confidence, however, was falling faster than the government could print the new currency. The government was caught in a downward economic spiral. A point of no return had been passed. No matter how many marks the government printed, the value of the marks fell more quickly than the new currency could even enter circulation. So the government had no choice but to keep printing more and more and more marks. By late October and early November 1923, the German financial system was breaking down. A pair of shoes, which cost 12 marks before the war, now cost 30 trillion marks. A loaf of bread went from half a mark to 200 billion marks. A single egg went from 0.08 marks to 80 billion marks. The German stock market, and here's what I'm telling you about, the German stock market went from 88 points at the end of the war to 26,890,000,000, but its purchasing power fell by 97%. So the German stock market went from 88 points to basically 27 billion points, but it lost its purchasing power. It crossed somewhere in between. Only gold and silver outpaced inflation. The price of gold had gone from about 100 marks to 87 trillion marks per ounce. 87 trillion. So gold kept up with the currency devaluation. It was an 87 trillion% increase in the price of gold. But it wasn't the price that mattered, it was the value of the gold. And the purchasing power of gold and silver had gone up exponentially. When Germany's hyperinflation finally came to an end on November 15, 1923, the currency supply had grown from 29 billion marks to 497 quadrillion marks. Currency supply had increased 17 billion times. The total value of the supply, however, of currency had lost 97.97% in value against gold. The poor were poor before the crisis. The poor were poor before the crisis, so they weren't affected by it. The rich, at least the smart ones, got a whole lot richer. But it was the middle class who was hurt the most. In fact, the middle class was obliterated. Do you notice what's going on in our country while we argue whether or not Trump is a rapist or racist, look up what Jesse Jackson used to say about Donald Trump. But the middle class was all but obliterated. There were a few exceptions. Those were the few people who had the right qualities and cunning to take advantage of the economic environment. They were shrewd, adept, and nimble, and adaptable. Those who could quickly adapt to a world they had never seen before, a world turned upside down, prospered. It didn't matter which class they came from, whether they were black or white or other, or whether they were gay or straight, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, atheist, didn't matter. If they could adapt and adapt well, they could become wealthy in a matter of months. They could become wealthy in a matter of months. Listen to this. At this time, an entire city block of commercial real estate in downtown Berlin could be purchased for 25 ounces of gold. They just sold a building in Manhattan for $8 million. The reason for this is that those who held their wealth in the form of currency became poorer and poorer as they watched their purchasing power be destroyed by the government. On the flip side, those who held their wealth in the form of gold watched their purchasing power increase exponentially as they became wealthy by comparison. That can be miners, that can be gold companies, and that can be physical gold. Here is the important lesson. During financial upheaval, a bubble popping, a market crash, a depression, or a currency crisis, or all of them, wealth is not destroyed. Wealth is not destroyed. It is merely transferred. During the Weimar hyperinflation, gold and silver didn't just win, but smashed their opponent into the ground by delivering yet another devastating knockout blow to fiat currency. Thus, those who held on to real money rather than currency, those who held on to gold, silver, platinum instead of currency, reap the rewards many times over. End of chapter. All right, I'm starving. I'm hot. You can tell that I get agitated sometimes when I answer questions. I don't mean any disrespect to anybody. I think I'll do the second, move them to my brokerage account. Yeah, Pit Lolly, do it. Highly recommend it. You check with your account, but it shouldn't cost you any tax. Then, of course, your tax basis becomes zero, and if you ultimately sell for a profit, that's where your taxes come. Hey, Doug C., I don't want to get into your idiotic comments. If this is what you think, go back to your gender studies. I don't have time for it. So anyway, I wish everybody the best. Peace, love, and happiness. We will all get through this just fine. What I'm hoping to do is get you thinking the way I always am, and I feel very naked and vulnerable because strategies I put in place have been rent asunder. But maybe we can all get through this together. And And I'll be here. We'll do it together. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there. And we'll catch you tomorrow. So cheers.